Before we begin, the name is placed on the top right side of the screen. The baby fox was presuming about her previous life. It ended when she was hit by a car. She remembered being scared to her core. However, she realized that she cannot afford to be afraid now, as she died at a very young age of 18 and has been living in this world for a year now. Sadly, she is still holding on to the memories of her previous life in spite of the fact that she is not a human being anymore. She had paws, white fluffy fur. Turns out she was reincarnated as a little baby fox in this world. She was devastated about her not being a human anymore. No matter how many times she peeked into her reflection in the mirror, she could not make peace with the fact that she is a baby fox in this life. As she was walking across the forest, she sensed something, even though she had memories of her past life, but her instincts are still of a fox. It was another fox looking for Milfiria, asking her what she was doing there. Milfiria is the name of the baby fox in this world, whereas the other fox who just spoke to her is her mother. Her mother was here to inform her that they are going home, hence they need to talk. Turns out Milfiria is not a fox, and neither is her mother. They are spirits of the snow. The mother fox suddenly transformed into a beautiful woman. However, Milfiria is still too small to take a human form. Moreover, Milfiria's mother informs her that she is going to have to stay here by herself for a while. Milfiria was instantly caught by surprise as her mother was giving her this information. Furthermore, her mother had been summoned by the king. The king is the most powerful man in all of Aladra. Milfiria's mother told her that she has been working for the king of this country. She also mentioned that the people who live in the same land as him are devoted to helping each other. However, it is also heard that not all spirits cooperate with people. But her mother is very supportive, as there has been some trouble with a neighboring country recently. And now the situation is getting worse day by day, hence her mother is required to assist the king in this matter. Milfiria was extremely heartbroken as she heard about her mother being away for a month. Milfiria's mother consoled her, asked her to be patient until she's away, but Milfiria was not ready for her mother to leave for a month. As she is just an infant, however, she kept questioning her mother that normally when she went to the king she would come back in a day, but why is it taking her 1 month? This time, moreover, Milfiria kept insisting her mother to stay. Therefore, her mom added that the King's Landing is a place of many people desire and ambitions, as there are those who seek to take the essence of the spirits for themselves. Following to that, she does not want to take Milfiria with her when she is still so pure, but Milfiria continues to insist, saying that she is not so pure and is covered in desire, and thus begs her mother to string her along. Milfiria's mother told her that she has always thought of her as oddly mature, despite that she was still adamant on her decision of not taking Milfiria along with her, as she is still just a child. It was hard for her mother too to leave her alone while she is still that young, as she tightly hugged her daughter, but as the heir to the name of Snowly, they need to be stronger together, so Milfiria instructs her to work on her cowardice while she's away. Thus her mother was teleporting through the sky towards her destination as she wished Milfiria good luck, as kept running behind her to stop her from leaving. At the end she came up to the conclusion that her mother is mean. Her mother is usually kind, but when it comes to education, she is very driven and harsh. Last time, she knocked her off a cliff and demanded her to climb back by herself without any help. And right now she had to be stronger than ever. Moreover, as Milfiria began to think of it, she realized there are no animals that attack spirits, and since the spirits don't get hungry, she did not have to worry about food. Hence, she came to the conclusion that maybe it's easier than she thought. And at this point, she forgot all about it. The day she started living on her own to go to college, she knew she had homesickness. As she was running through the mountain cliffs alone, she seemed lost. Her eyes were filled with tears as she was thinking about her mother and about the times when she would get lost and call for her mother. Her mother would always come and get her, and that is when another thought hit her mind, that she is going to die of loneliness. Even though her mind may be close to adulthood, but she is still just a child, and therefore it is impossible for her to be alone for a month on this quite snowy mountain, and thus she decides that she is also going to the capital. As she thinks of her mother, she knows that she cannot transform into a human like her, but she was sure that her mother will be surprised and praise her for her toughness. Furthermore, she starts her journey. As she completes a few steps, she thinks to herself that she has come far. But when she looks back, she was just a couple steps away from her home. And that is when she shows her dislike towards her small legs and decides to run faster. After running a few miles, she was finally out of the mountain for good and was headed towards the roads of the city. As she stood in front of the signboards looking for her way, she came across a weird detail that she had always heard, that it is warmer in the King's Landings compared to the mountains, but it was still snowing, which is a very impossible thing to happen. However, it had been 15 days since Milfiria had begun her journey, and it had been half a 9 months until her mother returned. Moreover, as she was heading to the countryside, she realized that she had never been to the countryside before and did not know if she would be okay or not. As she was looking at the other side, she heard voices that were referring to him as a doggy. They were a couple of humans thinking Milfiria was a dog. This statement angers Milfiria, as she instantly corrected them. However, the human kids picked her up as they were cheering. Moreover, they started patting her and hugging, which was very annoying for Milfiria, and thus she tries to run away as she did not want to go with those kids to the town. Moreover, Milfiria's mind was still being dragged down by the age of her body. She was extremely distressed by the looks of it. However, Milfiria decides to move forward towards the fort, as she was sure that the army, the knights, or the people who serve this country will be able to show her the way to the King's Landing, as she was not sure about what her next step should be. Furthermore, she cleverly tries to get in from the gates. As she peeked inside the fort, she was astonished to see real knights, as she had never seen them before in her past life, so this was an exciting experience for her. As Milfiria came closer, she came across a group of knights chattering, as one of the knights told the other that he is slouching, and he cannot be a knight with that attitude. After hearing that conversation, Milfiria instantly came to the conclusion that the knight with a huge scar on his face must be their superior. This knight only had one eye, which was very intimidating for Milfiria. In spite of how cleverly and quietly Milfiria entered the fort, she suddenly slipped and fell down, which unfortunately drew all the attention of the knights towards her. As soon as Milfiria noticed the attention, she instantly ran away, but wondered if she made the right choice because she needed to know the way to King's Landing. And then she reminds herself that she was a human in her previous life, so she shouldn't be afraid of the humans walking down the halls. At this point, Milfiria was giving up, as she thought that maybe she is a coward and wondered what would happen to a baby fox like her in this world. She believed that they would rip off her fur, or things could also get worse if they knew about her being a spirit. However, she finally finds a space for her to spend the night. It seemed dark, so she could not be seen, so this would help her camouflage. Therefore, as soon as she went inside the dark alley, she immediately fell asleep, as was extremely tired. Suddenly, the one-eyed knight appeared as she was asleep. He was peeping from the window. The guy opens the door and barges inside. It turns out this is his room, so the knight keeps getting closer. Additionally, a large man with one eye blocked the entrance. There was no room to run behind him, therefore Milfiria prayed that he would not come closer to her. She kept begging for help as he moved closer. His hands looked very tough, and they even had blisters. The only thing that was running in Milfiria's mind was that if she get caught by this man, it could be the end of her. Therefore, she kept praying that she wouldn't get caught, as she did not know how to make a blizzard like her mother, or did not know how to freeze things. Hence, as the man moved closer to Milfiria, she would get more nervous, and that is when she decided that she would not go down without a fight, and let herself get caught. So as soon as the knight's arm reaches towards her, she bites it. And that is when the knight notices Milfiria and apologizes for scaring her. They both were staring at each other, when Milfiria filled with shame as she realized that she just bit an innocent man. She could still taste his blood in his mouth, and this was the first time it occurred to her that she had a wild side. Milfiria just hoped that the knight was okay, even though her teeth are so small that she shouldn't have the strength to hurt him. But she was still in shock, since it was her first time trying to hurt someone. The knight gasped through Milfiria and realized she was suddenly very lively. So Milfiria told the knight that she is worried about him, but she should not come closer to her at the same time. That is when the knight hesitantly asks Milfiria about what is wrong with her. That is when she tells him that she is also unaware of what is wrong with her, and at the same time apologizes for her behavior. This is when Milfiria realized that his face might be scary, but he did not seem like a bad guy. Therefore she should not be quick to judge. However, the knight was gone and Milfiria only wondered if he had treated his wound. However, Milfiria felt so sorry and helpless, and she wanted to tell him that herself, but the sad part is that she cannot speak. Furthermore, Milfiria suddenly looked up, and he was back with a tasty delight called meatballs. He brought them for Milfiria. The spirits never get hungry, but this was the first time she smelled food since she came into this world. Her mother always gave a dying wild animal as a shack, and she would always tell her that she did not want it, hence she spent a lot of time without eating, as she always thought that she did not have an appetite in this body. But now that she saw food on the table, she was extremely excited. The knight asks her to hold on as she kept running around with excitement. Moreover, the knight leaves Milfiria to her meal, hence Milfiria very rapidly finishes her food. Moving forward, as Milfiria was looking at the knight cleaning his wound, she was only wondering if it would leave a scar. Even though she is a spirit, she would not have any germs, but he still should put a bandage on it. Furthermore, as the knight looked at the plate in which Milfiria ate, he was surprised that she licked it clean as he asked her where she is going to sleep today. Milfiria says nothing and looks at him when he asks her to move that shovel tomorrow and wishes her good night. Milfiria was so impressed that the knight was worried about her, and he had a gentle voice. The one-eyed knight was polishing his sword again. That is when she could sense the signs of life. Milfiria could even listen to knights from over there. She felt so lonely and alone in the mountains compared to where she is right now. As she had some memories of her previous life, she had the realization that she is not completely a wild creature nor a solitary spirit. She always have felt comfortable around people. However, the next morning as she opens her eye, she sees the one-eyed knight up on her face and gets break fast for her. Yet again Milfiria was surprised that he was getting breakfast for her. Moreover, Milfiria starts playing in the yard as she starts digging holes in the ground. She was having the time of her life as she was obsessed with digging holes, but the knight warned her not to dig too deep as she could get stuck in it. And thus she got stuck in the hole she dug, and what the knight warned her about came across to be right. She apologizes, and he brings her breakfast and watched her from the window as she eats it. And that is when Milfiria decides that she will stay with the knight for a while. It seemed like there were only knights there, no innocent children. No hunters looking for fur were present there, hence it was a very safe place. She comes to the conclusion that she could wait for her mother here, as there are plenty of people, so she won't be lonely, and above everything she gets scrumptious food. And as she makes her decision, she decides to look around the fort, as it was going to be her home for a while now, and she comes across a horse. Then as she runs along, she comes across a large training area, fresh clean snow. She could use this entire field to run around. Milfiria seemed extremely happy and excited as she was certain about her staying at the fort and playing around. She was not going to complain about anything, and she was going to leave a trail of footprints all over the place. After spending the entire day playing, Milfiria had fun. She was extremely content with how her day went by. Moreover, the knight offers her a blanket even though she did not need it because her fur kept her warm, but the blanket was soft so she took it anyways. Moreover, the knight asks Milfiria about how her day went as he saw her running around the field, and it looked like she was having a lot of fun. As Milfiria found out that the knight was watching her play, she felt embarrassed, and thus she decides to be careful tomorrow. But at the same time, she realizes that one can never be too careful. Furthermore, as the next morning Milfiria was roaming around in the fort, she came across some knights, hoping no one would see her. However, 4 days had passed since she decided to stay at the fort. She felt like she had been able to explore this sport a lot, and she has also learned that the number of knights stationed here does not seem to be very large for such a large fort. Hence, she is not just playing around. It is fun for her to play hide and seek and explore without being spotted by the knight. It is a lot of work. However, the one-eyed knight returns. He gave Milfiria food every morning and evening. He always tries not to make any loud noises so he doesn't scare me. He is also good at losing windows and doors. The knight with one eye was bound to be a good person, even though she was still a little prejudiced and nervous. However, this time he brought her a meat jerky which had a very delicious aroma. However, the jerky was in the knight's hand, and this is when Milfiria realized that he wanted her to eat it out of his rather than eating it out of a plate. She instantly became more nervous as she could not eat out of his hand. She wanted him to put it on the box. But the knight kept offering it out of his hand, promising that he wouldn't do anything. Milfiria was doubtful, but she overcame her fear and ate it out of his hand. It was a delicious piece of meat. Her mood instantly elevated as the jerky was delicious, hence the knight offered her even more, and she started jumping and eating it. Moving forward, as the knight was feeding Milfiria, he put his hand on her head to pet her, but she instantly jumped away with fear as he tells her that he was just going to pet her. The one-eyed knight tried to touch her several times since then to pet her, but every time she got so nervous that she would run away, and she always felt that it is a shame that she always make him look so disappointed every time he comes to pet her, as he gave her food and jerky every day. So she was very uncertain about why wouldn't she just let him pet her. It's either an animal instinct or the nature of a spirit that doesn't like to be touched by human. She is always afraid of that big hand falling on her head. Therefore, she apologizes to the one-eyed knight, saying that she is not the kind of girl who will push anyone away in the first place. She may look like this, but she is a lone spirit. However, the knight closes the door, but Milfiria was still talking, hence, she decided to do something about this after dinner. Furthermore, she had made it through another day without being seen by the knight. Maybe she had talent for stealth. However, she wondered if the one-eyed knight has already returned, since she wanted to know what was for dinner today. However, as she walked home, she suddenly smelled a stray dog. It was a wild dog, who looked so fierce it looked like it could take Milfiria in one piece, as he also seemed angry while Milfiria was filled with fear. The dog started chasing Milfiria. The way the dog was looking at her, she was certain that he was going to kill her, so she decided to run on the snow as she was light-weighted, but the dog was heavy so he could sink. Hence, this will buy her some time. However, the outrage between the dog and Milfiria caught the attention of the knights present there. As they saw Milfiria, they realized that she is the fox they have been hearing about. However, Milfiria, on the other hand, was very unbothered by everything else as she ran like wind to save herself. She now decides to run through water and starts swimming, while the fierce dog stops right there. It looked like he was not going to follow her through the water. This pond was probably the place they used to clear out the snow. The pond was extremely cold and big, but thanks to her undercoat she was fine. But now she was uncertain about how long she could be going like this and keeping it up. As if she did not move any feet she would sink. Hence, she decides to give up already, as she may look round or delicious, but her body is entirely fur. She felt helpless. The water was starting to steep into her fur. It was really cold, her fur was getting heavier and her legs were tired, and as the dog was barking, all the knights appeared near the pond. A knight shows up for the rescue of the baby fox. The knight who was coming to save Milfiria seemed very scary, and according to her mood, she did not want to go with him. As she asked him to stop yelling at her, the knights kept calling Milfiria. Furthermore, Milfiria was certain that they are good people and chased away the dog, but she did not get why they had such scary looks, as according to her image of a knight, he should be a beautiful, glamorous young man, and if they're not in uniform, nobody would know that they are knights. Milfiria had only seen thugs with a face like that in her past life. The knights kept complaining about why wasn't the baby fox coming to them, when one told the other that maybe it was scared of his face. They both had utterly huge faces. One had a big beard and the other one had an evil grin. They both were fighting with each other when Milfiria yells that they are both equally scary looking, hence they shall stop fighting. However, the other knights showed up with a stick she could use to save her life. But Milfiria still refused to take their help, as it was not their faces which threw her off, it was her sense of caution, even if it meant risking her own life. She can't just jump into the arms of a stranger and ask for help, even if her life is in danger. Thus her legs stopped working. She was in extreme difficulty, and even in the extreme difficulty her mother was all she could think about. Her eyes were filled with tears. The scary-looking men tried their best to save her, but at this point she was drowning, but suddenly someone appeared for her rescue. It was the one-eyed knight. He had proved his loyalty and consideration once again. It was a blessing in disguise that the one-eyed knight reached there and saved Milfiria on spot. The Knight of the Realm of the 9th Branch Deputy Captain Grawl was writing a letter. When a fellow knight came to pay a visit, he saw Milfiria and instantly pointed out that she is the baby fox that has been seen around lately. About 4 days ago, a baby fox took up residence in this fort. No sign of the mother fox has been found. It must have wandered here after being abandoned or separated from its parents. It is still too young to be hunting. Captain Grawl wasn't sure, but he thought she is a female fox as she is so adorable and pushy that he felt like she's a girl. The fellow knight mentioned that he is not the only one to see the baby fox roaming around in the fort. Many others have seen her running around the training grounds and roaming around. Captain Grawl added that this northern fort is often covered with snow in the winters, and there was always a sense of isolation, but the sudden appearance of this baby fox has brought a sense of soothness to the hearts of the knights. These tough men are delighted to see her small footsteps. The fellow knight came to the conclusion after listening to the captain that he is an animal lover. He likes cute animals. Furthermore, Captain Grawl asks the fellow knight to join him in the sword training room, but he wasn't sure if the knight can handle it though. However, Milfiria stood there staring at both the knights, hoping they would feed her something. It was like the other knights were not aware that she was feeding the fox. However, it didn't matter if the other knights didn't know, because the head chef knew, and he had prepared something else for the baby fox today. It was the first time he had made something with turnips and hoped that the baby fox would like it. As last time, he prepared green peas which were left behind. However, looking at the baby fox, Captain realized that she still hasn't let her guard down. Hence, the captain decides to make sure he keeps his distance, since he believed that the baby fox was relaxed. But she did not fully trust him. He had always wanted to touch that soft fur. But today he had brought something new. As he was feeding her, he consoled her to make the sense of insecurity go away. He told her that he won't do anything horrible to her, and he wanted her to know that she is safe, but he will not forcefully pat her. She can take his time. But all he wants from her is to close the distance among them, and suddenly the wild dog appears again. One-eyed knight rescues Milfiria. However, the next day when she wakes up, she felt so hot and extremely uncomfortable. She did not understand where the heat was coming from, as it was supposed to be the middle of winter, right? However, as she looks up, there was a fireplace that was causing the heat, and she had no idea that she was sleeping in here. Additionally, she also senses something different. It was not the place of the one-eyed knight. Then suddenly she hears asking Milfiria if she was awake or not. It was the voice of a beautiful woman. As the women looked at Milfiria, she was so mesmerized by her furry appearance, she thought Milfiria was very cute. On the other, Milfiria was surprised to come across a female knight, as she asks Milfiria if she's feeling cold anymore. The lady knight complained that she had been sitting in front of the fireplace, but she can't seem to get warm. Milfiria, who was in the lady's lap, was scared and uneasy, as she thought to herself that in her previous life she would happy to be pampered by a woman, but as a baby fox, she cannot let her guard down, and all she wanted to do was jump out of her lap and look for the one at night. Even though the lady knight kept telling her that she doesn't have to be scared, no one is going to hurt her. Even though Milfiria was aware of that, she still did not want to stay there because of the smell, and she did not know the people and did not know this place, and the fireplace was also a very new thing for her, as she is a snow spirit and she does not think that she is a good match for it. She also realized that if she were a human, it would be a warm distance, but it's uncomfortably hot for her body as a baby fox. Therefore, she could not take it anymore and jumped out of the lady knight's lap. As she sat there in the corner, the other knight came to ask her to come back as it was cold in the corner. However, Milfiria refused to go as she did not feel the cold, but her fur was still a little damp, which she dries herself. However, the lady knight was extremely heartbroken as she took Milfiria jumping out of her lap as a sign of rejection, and she started thinking that she is scary. Milfiria did apologize and explained that it is not because she is scary, it is because Milfiria doesn't know her and everyone looked so big to her. This explanation instantly fixed the mood of the Lady Knight. However, the lady believed that Milfuria is a wild fox, so she will be scared of the humans. Furthermore, now she asks the one-eyed knight about what would be the best possible way to get her guard down. However, the knight replied that he had failed himself. She is afraid of people. He was hoping that Tina would be better than him. However, he failed and apologizes to Tina for making it late. But Tina did not mind anything at all, as she found the baby fox so cute that she was happy to just look at her. However, on the other hand, Milfuria wondered why she was being held by the strange female knight. Moreover, as she saw the one-eyed knight, she was surprised and relieved. The one-eyed knight thought to keep Milfuria here with them until she could take care of herself, but if she is too scared of people, the knight felt sorry for her. Hence, it is better to let her out. But the thought of being attacked by a wild dog again was disturbing. Tina mentioned that Captain Grawl is more familiar to her, and asks if he has been feeding her. The captain replies that he does feed her, but she only likes the food and doesn't mean that she lets him get closer to her. Milfuria looked at the captain and thought to herself that the knight jumped into the pond to save her. She did not think he was a bad person even before this, so she decides to not use her animal instincts anymore. As she is a snow spirit, she can handle some of it, but she wanted to know if the captain was okay and his shoes and clothes were dry yet. As Tina looked at the captain and baby fox, she believed that the baby fox was in love with him. But the captain disagreed with her, as he believed that Milfuria only expected him to feed her, as he had never been this close before without food or anything. The captain takes out the jerky and firmly believed that Milfuria was being attracted by the smell of the jerky. But Milfuria believed that after everything they had been through, she did not deserve the jerky, as she thought it would be safer to be around the one at night. She also wanted to thank him for saving her life and wanted to inform him that she was no longer afraid when he held his hand to her, as she was rescued by his big hands. So Milfuria doesn't eat the jerky even though she loves it, to show the captain that she really loves him. Tina pointed out that the baby fox understood that the captain saved her life, hence this was Milfuria's way of showing gratitude towards the captain, as she came closer to his hand and started kissing it, while Tina at the back was extremely jealous. That is when the captain introduces Milfuria to the baby fox and explains to her that Tina is also not a bad person, and once Milfuria starts to meet her, she will actually be in love with her. However, since it was getting late, the captain asks Milfuria if she is not hungry, then she shall take some rest, as there are a lot of dangerous things on the training grounds like wild dogs, and they could get to her like they did today. Therefore, the captain was worried, as he did not want the baby fox to be eaten by wild dogs. The captain was also concerned about if it was the right thing to do to provide human protection to a wild animal. But the captain fully took up the responsibility of taking care of the baby fox. He would keep her in the building until she is old enough. Even after all this, Milfuria missed her mother. The only thing that could make her happy was her mother, and she wondered if she would have to say goodbye to the one-eyed knight that he had come to know so well. She knew she was going to miss him. Furthermore, the captain showed Milfuria her room to rest. There was a cute little bed prepared for her, which brought her so much joy. The captain tucked her in the soft blanket and put her to sleep. This was the first time the captain pet her, and she was not afraid. However, she could not sleep like this. In order to achieve the dry and fluffy appearance that she is so proud of, Milfuria wakes up after a restful night on her brand new cat bed, lets out a loud yawn, and then shakes her entire body of fur in order to dry herself. Despite the fact that the captain of the knights is sleeping, she looks to the side of her and sees the angry face of the captain. This causes Milfuria to feel a little bit of fear. Suddenly, the captain opens his eyes wide, which causes her to jump in fear. She is wondering whether he is actually asleep or whether he is just awake enough to defend himself in the event that someone tries to kill him while he is sleeping. Meanwhile, she is wondering, during the time that she is going through a defensive phase, the captain gets up from his bed and, after a short amount of time, recalls that he brought her inside in order to protect her. Despite the fact that he greets her with a smile, Milfuria considers the fact that he woke up to be a little bit more frightening than usual. However, she will make an effort to avoid being scared the next morning. The captain makes another attempt to pet her, and she goes ahead and does so without any kind of resistance, which comes as a surprise to the captain because it was much simpler than it had been before. He feels that Milfiria is still cold, which she says she is, but not because of falling in the pond, but because she is a snow spirit, as he continues to feel her. She makes an effort to convey this to him by running around trying to show her energy, which the captain recognizes and acknowledges. However, before she can fully enjoy herself, she gets asked to stop. The captain then gets up to change his clothes, but Milfiria is embarrassed to see his body and hides in her bed. However, the captain gets ready quickly and leaves for something before breakfast, which Milfiria is curious about. Milfiria is confused about what the captain is doing, following him instead of letting him go because she knows he is not going to work, which he initially denies, but then accepts after seeing her energy. She makes the decision to follow him instead of letting him go. Outside, the weather is cold, which makes Milfiria thinks must be hard for the humans to breathe in, as she can just rely on her cold fur as a snow spirit, but she is surprised to see the captain continue exercising in it. After that, he even removes his shirt because he is sweating, which causes her to wonder if he does this every day during this winter in such harsh conditions. She then gets attacked by little birds, which make it clear for her that animals are not scared of snow spirits, but only her mother was the feared one, which also reminds Milfiria of her mother telling her to get stronger. During the time that the captain is continuing his training without a shirt on, Milfiria continues to follow him and match his speed, which he continues to observe. During this time, Tina is back at the fort, where she observes that the commander's office and the branch chief's office are both quiet in the morning due to the fact that they are busy with work. However, she then meets Kix, who appears sleepy. He explains that he had a night shift and that he will now just eat and sleep. She asks if it was border security once more, which Kix complains about because it is a mountainous region that is too dangerous for anyone to even cross, and therefore performing such a strict duty there does not make any sense. At the same time, she tells him that there are reports of snow spirits being there, and the king has asked them to protect it. He takes a big breath and offers to eat something warm when he finds a crowd gathered acting lost while looking at something. It turns out that the captain sitting, along with Milfiria, the small white fur fox that is tucked under the table, is the one who has managed to make everyone, including Kix and Tina, comfortable. Nevertheless, Kix suddenly yells out to Tina the question of why it is inside with the captain, and Tina responds by saying that there is a reason for it. This occurs as they are greeting the captain and Milfiria. Tina gives her the nickname Mil-chan, which causes the captain and Kix to wonder why she is called that. Tina responds by explaining that it is because she is white like milk, while trying to maintain a friendly expression. This makes the captain and Milfiria happy, also because the captain forgot to name her, but now he has an easy to remember name thanks to Tina, which makes her happy. Though Kix complains why he was never told about this, but the captain simply say that he never asked. As a result of the fact that everyone likes Milfiria, he proposes the idea of making her a symbol for the northern fort. However, the captain responds by telling him to train instead after his night shift. Kix makes an attempt to call Milfiria to him, which causes her to become scared as he makes an attempt to touch her fur in a disturbing manner. However, the captain and Tina scold him for being so loud. Tina tells him that even she does not have permission from Milfiria to touch her yet since you need to take your time with her, which Milfiria agrees to. Seeing as more people start to gather at the room, the captain takes Milfiria back with him as she is not used to so many people being around her. But Kix asks him a question about whether the captain has told the branch chief about this, which he replies to saying that he has not yet, but will inform Yama, the branch chiefs, later today. While Kix gets excited to see the Ice Branch Chief's reaction to meeting Milfiria, she gets a sudden greeting by the chef who makes her food, which shocks her at the start, but she happily thanks him by nodding her head. Milfiria seems quite happy to be named Mil by her godmother Tina, as it surprisingly matches with her real name that her mother gave her. and also that it is just not something like white or little because of how she looks. The sudden realization that milk is cheap hits her, but she is able to move on when two knights come to greet the commander. She is thinking about what the real name of the commander is, as everyone just refers to him by his title, because he is such an important person. The next thing she does is connect the dots of the two important people, the commander and the branch chief, who are referred to as Ice and Iron. She then makes an expression of irritation while doing this, which causes the commander to become confused. During the time that they are walking down the hall, a young man is seen turning around and closing the curtains on his windows. He is apparently thinking about the little fox in a serious manner. The captain tells Milferia that he will return at noon, which she figures out is for his meeting with the Ice Branch Chief, whom she was excited to meet as well. But now she wonders what will happen to her when she is left alone. While she is expressing her sadness, the captain tells her that it is his training with his men on horseback, which she is unable to ride. However, she believes that she will be okay because she has become friends with the horses, despite the fact that it may affect his work. As a result, she returns to her bed. After the captain notices that she is upset, he tries to reassure her by telling her that he will return at noon, which she is aware of already. However, she decides to take a nap after he leaves. Although she makes an effort to sleep more, she is unable to do so because she finds it boring to be by herself. She tries to find comfort by shifting her position, but instead she becomes irritated. When she looks out the window, she notices snow falling from the sky in a slow and steady manner, which makes her excited. However, she quickly becomes bored after sitting in the same spot for a number of moments. After that, she contemplates what is ahead for her as she climbs to the top of the captain's bed, which is much higher than her own. She takes in an entirely new view from the top, and then she decides to lay down on the bed because she finds it to be very comfortable. However, she immediately gets off because the smell of the captain is all over it. She then finds some books on top of the desk, and she begins to wonder if she is able to read the language of this world. As a result, she begins climbing the chair with everything that she has, which requires a lot of effort, but she is able to reach the top of it with a lot of willpower. Due to her lack of energy, her paws begin to shake a little bit. However, climbing from the chair to the desk was easier than she was expecting, so she was able to do that. She is pleased with what she did and pleased with the new view from the top, as she does not get to see it very often. She then turns around to look at the books, which contain letters on them. However, she is unable to read them because she is not familiar with them. Consequently, she makes the decision to open the book and learn it because she is a snow spirit. She wishes she had a power that could assist her in this effort. She recalls how her mother's ability to speak the language helped her to understand it, but she is unable to read it because she has never seen it written down. She gives up trying to read until her mother teaches her how to read. Due to her confusion regarding the language, she manages to accidentally spill ink all over the desk and the white papers. However, before the ink reaches the books, she manages to knock them over to the floor, thus avoiding the books from being ruined by the ink. The fact that she was able to save the books is a source of calm for her, but the paper and ink are a different story. She becomes worried about the fact that the captain will be returning at noon, so she had to at least bring the books back in the correct order. When she makes an attempt to move the books, she discovers that there are traces of black ink everywhere, from the cover of the book to the entire floor where she has stepped on. She also discovers ink on her paws as a result of the ink that was spilled on the desk, which caused a mess throughout the entire room. She begins to feel worried as the entire room appears to be dirty, and she considers using her blanket as a means of removing the ink from all over the place. However, this does not work, as all it does is make the mark even larger than it was before. After that, she recalls that the blankets do not actually absorb water, and that she had given up her blanket for no reason other than to be responsible for its destruction. While she is going through an even greater state of panic because she is thinking about how angry the commander will be, she is making more marks on the floor because she was moving without thinking. which causes her to become completely blank. Meanwhile, the commander returns from his training with the knights and horses, thinking about if he took care of his room so that Milfiria is not troubled by anything or even hurt, since she is shy, making a very serious expression which makes the knight scared. However, as he enters his room, he discovers that Milfiria is not in her bed, and that there are paw marks with black ink all over the room. These paw marks lead him to the top of his desk, where he discovers the black ink spilled all over it along with the white papers. After grabbing it, he notices that it was already closed in a manner that was not completely secure. He then follows the trail of marks that Milfiria left behind in order to locate her. This leads him to the area under his bed, where he bends over and discovers her sitting in the dark, feeling sad about what she has done. He gives her a reassuring smile, telling her that he is not angry and that even leaving the jar there was his fault, so she can come out now. This causes her to look at him slowly, but she is still feeling regretful about having left the jar there. He reaches out with his hand to her, gently pet her, and grabs her by her soft fur in order to pull her out from under the bed. As he does so, he notices that all of her paws are actually covered in black ink. He is relieved to see that she is not hurt, and he makes the decision to clean her up before they go meet with the chief of the branch. As Milfiria listens to this, she begins to cry tears of happiness because the commander is so kind. She also begins to move her paws, which cover even him in black ink, and he asks her to stop in a gentle manner. She has come to the realization that if the chief of the branch were to see her covered in ink, he would have a negative opinion of her, and this has significantly reduced her excitement about meeting him. On the other hand, when she realizes that the commander took her to the men's bath, where everyone is shirtless, she becomes embarrassed and begins to move in a panic because she is still a girl. Meanwhile, the commander calmly wipes her paws with a cloth. Even though he exerted a great deal of effort, the commander was not successful in completely removing the black ink from her paws. Milfiria is still concerned about the black ink because it reminds her of her mistake, and she was really proud of her white paws. However, this is not a major issue because they will simply return to their normal state when Milfiria runs around in the snow. After that, he is able to remove the ink from the floor with relative ease. However, he is unable to remove it from the desk. As a result, he makes the decision to simply purchase a new one because this one was getting pretty old anyway. Milfiria expresses her regret for this, as well as for the fact that he had to work through his break in order to clean up her mess, but he assures her that she should not be concerned about any of it. The commander then informs her that he is going to meet with the chief of the branch at this very moment. However, he cautions Milfiria that the chief is the most important person in the fort, and that she should not bite him in any way. This comes as a surprise to her because she could not imagine of anyone being more important than the Iron Commander she has been living with. As a result, she imagines the branch chief to be a bear of a man. When she thinks about it, she becomes anxious and forgets to walk properly, which causes the commander to become confused as he looks back at her, but then continues to knock on the door of the chief's room. When Milfiria is getting ready to meet a very dangerous man inside, the branch chief allows them to enter, but during that time, she smells soap. The commander extends a warm greeting to the leader of the branch, who is a handsome young man who is currently seated at his desk, drinking his tea while looking at some papers. The commander gets right to the point and informs the branch chief about the little white fox, while Milfiria is taken aback by the fact that he is so young and not even dangerous as she had imagined he would be. After that, the commander approaches the chief of the branch and asks for permission to live with her. He has even brought her to the office with him, which causes the chief to become enraged whenever he looks at her, which in turn causes Milfiria to become terrified. When she saw that face, she recalled that the chief had been given the title of Ice, and his youthful appearance was just a distraction for her. Now, she believes that he is not pleased to see her. On the other hand, she gathers her thoughts and tells herself that she is adorable and petite, and that there is no way that anyone, including the chief of the branch, would simply tell her to leave because she is ugly. But that was only what she believed, because the chief of the branch only looked at her. And now she began making points about how she will not cause them any trouble, despite the fact that she spilled some ink. She continues to list her positive qualities in an effort to persuade the branch chief to retain her, and she does so while making happy faces. However, the branch chief only makes an annoyed face and asks the captain if this was the only thing he wanted to talk about. Despite the fact that Milfiria is irritated by the fact that the branch chief had nothing else to say, the commander continues to talk to him about how adorable this baby fox is. The branch chief then goes on to explain that he is aware of the necessity of having animals that provide emotional support here in the fort, as the demanding tasks that they perform in this chilly environment can cause them to become depressed. In spite of this, he asserts that he will reconsider his decision in the event that the animals in question cause problems during their missions. In response, the commander states that he requires authorization in order to safeguard her. Grail is the name that the branch chief calls the commander, and he tells him that he has no problem with him taking responsibility. This makes Grail happy, and he expresses his gratitude to the chief. Despite the fact that Milfiria is certain that Yama, the chief, does not like her, she has a soft spot in her heart for the branch chief. Yama is a kind and capable individual who is capable of making decisions that are significant and suitable for leading a fort. There are some people who do not share Tina and Grail's affinity for animals, and she believes that she made a mistake when she thought of herself as cute in the hopes that anyone would be willing to accept her. Despite the fact that she is a snow spirit and has memories of the past, she continues to cause trouble along the same lines as the ink, which causes her to feel even more depressed about the fact that she is practically useless at the moment. The commander Grail notices that she is upset and makes the decision to take action so that she is no longer left alone whenever he is required to work. Meanwhile, Milfiria is concerned about being of assistance to the people who are located around the fort, just as the branch chief Yama had instructed her to do. As she makes a sad face, the commander Grail quickly recognizes her and asks her to go play outside with him because there are no dogs during the daytime. He gives her reassurance by telling her that even if a dog comes, there are men outside and a guard by the door who will assist her in getting to safety. However, as he pet her, he tells her that if she were a human, he would keep her inside these walls so that she can be safe at all times. In addition, he suggests that she should go out into the wilderness at some point in the future. Therefore, she should be aware of the dangers that exist in the natural world, and she should also learn how to hunt, which she immediately refuses to do. It is then that she comes to the realization that if she were a cat or a dog, she would not be required to return to the wild. However, because she is a fox, she is unable to avoid doing so. In addition, maintaining her relationship with the commander for an extended period of time may make it more challenging for her to return to her mother. Despite this, she is content to accept this reality because she has fallen in love with the commander, and it is already too late for her to return to her previous life. The commander, upon observing her excitement, inquires as to whether or not she is content. At the same time, she is contemplating the extent to which she adores her mother, just as she enjoys the snow and the jerky that she consumes. And then she recalls how the branch chief Yama referred to the commander as Grail. Although she is relieved that she is now aware of his name, she finds it strange because she is accustomed to not being aware of his name. She has high hopes that she will be able to reveal her true identity to the commander and the other individuals, but she prefers the nickname Mill that they have given her. She worries about the amount of time that remains until her mother arrives to pick her up, and she is also concerned about how she will be able to say goodbye to the commander without being able to speak his language. While she is concerned that everyone will become anxious if she suddenly vanishes without a trace, the commander reminds her not to leave the fort, that she should stay away from the pond, and that she should make every effort to avoid getting hurt in any way. This makes her feel sad because she had hoped to be able to play without having to worry about anything. While the commander and Milfiria are playing in the thick snow, The commander leaves her with the promise that he will come and get her before it gets dark. Meanwhile, the branch chief looks at them through the window of his office with a frustrated expression on his face. She has been playing in the snow for some time now, and she has not been afraid of any nights that pass her by. She has come to the realization that the tears she shed over leaving the commander were not worth it, and that instead, it has been a lot of fun to play in the snow. On the other hand, she has a hard time making even a single snowball because her entire furry body is covered in snow. In an attempt to get the snow out of her body, she rolls in every direction, but she ends up getting laughed at by some passing knights who were watching what she was doing. The knight gets down on one knee and calls Milfiria towards him by signaling with his hand. She becomes irritated with them for laughing, and she asks for their assistance. She recognizes the signal, but she hesitates before going because he is a new person to her. As a result, her animal characteristics prevent her from going toward him, despite the fact that she has a lot of snow on her. However, she makes an effort and moves closer to him through the power of her willpower, which surprises the knight because he believes that the commander's decision to give her time caused her to become accustomed to people. However, she denies this and says that she is still nervous. She is terrified of being touched because no one else, with the exception of the commander, does it. However, because the commander's odor is normal, Milfiria allows the knight to free her from the snow, which the knight does in a gentle manner. Even Milfiria is pleased with how well he performed, as the other knight is impressed by how wonderful he was. After the weight of the snow was removed from Milfiria's body, the knight who removed the snow tells the other knight that he is familiar with the process because he is used to removing snow from the long-haired dog that his parents have. This allows Milfiria to run around without any difficulty. Because they are going to remain here until nighttime, Milfiria considers the knight to be a helpful older brother. She expresses her gratitude to the knight for his assistance, and he even offers her additional assistance if she requires it. Following that, she continues to play, and she even went to the big brother knight twice more to get the snow removed. However, once she had finished playing, she waited at the door for the commander to come and pick her up at the usual time. As was to be expected, the commander arrives promptly and inquires as to whether or not she had a good time playing around. She responds with a pleasant expression on her face and makes a hasty approach to him. She then thinks to herself that she is able to enjoy snow now because in her previous life, she was unable to do so because she was always cold and the futon in her home kept her warm. However, now that she has fur, she is able to enjoy the outdoors without any difficulties. When the commander sees this, he realizes that she enjoys playing outside after all, and he makes a sad face. This causes Milfiria to feel anxious, and she makes a hasty attempt to go to him and lick his hand, but she is unable to do so. While the commander was under the impression that she had gained new knowledge when she bit his shoe, she let it go when he attempted to pet her in order to avoid giving any wrong impressions regarding her. In spite of the strange thing that she did, the commander continues to pet her with joy, which makes her feel at ease because she believes that she is prepared to take on any challenge. Later, in the cafeteria, Tina and Kix come to see the commander and Milfiria sitting at the same table, enjoying their food. However, as Tina is greeting Milfiria, Kix grabs her and throws her in the air in a playful manner, praising her fur. Meanwhile, Milfiria is terrified to the point of death because she is so high up. Tina immediately stops him, which Kix does not understand because he believes that Milfiria is now accustomed to people, despite the fact that she is lying on the floor with a pale face. The commander strikes him in the head and then attends to Milfiria. All the while Tina scolds Kix for his foolish behavior. After that, Milfiria makes the decision to remember Kix, but not in a positive way. She compares him to the children she encountered when she was going to town and trying to find her way there. During the time that Kix is attempting to reduce the pain caused by the hit that he received from the captain, 2 additional knights enter the room and inquire about what he is doing. Meanwhile, the other knight presents himself to the commander. They look at Milfiria, which brings back memories of their frightening expressions from the time they rescued her from the dog when it was trying to catch her. But despite this, they are all warm and friendly. When they see the expression she is making, they ask her what is wrong with her. But all she is thinking about is the frightening expressions they are making. As they all gather in one location, all she can think about is how large and terrifying they are, despite the fact that she is aware that they are kind individuals. This causes the knights to be confused as they observe her shaking so badly, and one of them makes a joke about how their face is the reason she is so terrified. The knights yell at each other as a result of this, which makes her even more terrified. Following this, the commander instructs them to refrain from making such loud noises because Milfiria becomes frightened by the noise. This causes the knights to apologize and leads them to believe that the fox does not remember the day that they assisted her. Tina immediately jumps in and says that even she was scared of them when she first met them, so it is normal for the fox to be scared of them as well, which is something that everyone agrees with. Tina tries to cheer them up by telling them that she is now okay with them, while Milfiria feels bad for reacting to them in such a manner. Despite the fact that this makes them sad, the fact that women, children, and now even animals are afraid of them is a source of motivation for them. She wonders to herself that if she were able to communicate with them in their native tongue, she would be able to convey to them how much she values them and how she has not forgotten the day that they assisted her. They begin to tell their sad stories about how they try to help a person, but they just think of them as bad guys, even though they are wearing officer uniforms. This causes Tina to feel sad, so Milfiria decides to try and move towards them with courage, and she decides to show them her appreciation through the actions that she takes. By bringing a portion of her food towards them and dropping it in front of them, she demonstrates how much she likes them and how she is aware that they are respectable individuals. In the beginning, they are confused as to why she brought her food to them, but eventually, they come to the realization that Milfiria is expressing her gratitude to them for that particular day by providing them with a portion of her food. The knights are grateful for it, but they believe that the commander should be the one to receive the gratitude for saving her. However, she is pleased to recall that these knights were the ones who were responsible for getting rid of the dog. Milfiria was able to convey her emotions to them without having to speak a word. Rather, she simply performed a helpful act toward them, which enabled them to comprehend how much she values their assistance. This made everyone happy, including Milfiria, who was able to express her feelings without having to speak. After that, Milfiria shows Tina and the commander how much she loves them by giving them a piece of her food. This makes both of them happy, and they express their gratitude to Milfiria for the gift she gave them. During this time, Kix is still sitting in the corner, feeling the pain of being hit, and the commander gives her a pat on the head. They have been kind almost all the time, but they get the opposite reaction due to their faces, so the knights are grateful that they finally got a thank you. After that, they all begin to offer praise to Milfiria, referring to her as cute, and they express their desire to be able to pet her in the future. She even allowed the commander to pet her, despite the fact that he had a frightening face. They then wonder what they will do with the piece of meat that they obtained from Milfiria. When the branch chief enters the room with his serious face, and when one of the knights thanks him for his hard work, the branch chief makes an annoyed face and moves along, leaving everyone confused. However, that is because they are accustomed to his ice behavior, which means that he is always serious like this. They speculate as to whether or not the chief heard what they were saying, which has left even Milfiria confused about what has just taken place. While Kix is attempting to teach Milfiria to shake hands with her paws, Milfiria consciously chooses not to do so because she believes that doing so will make the situation more humorous. Meanwhile, the other knights tease Kix by pointing out that she is unable to do so because she has not been trained to do so. In point of fact, she is doing this in order to kill time because the commander has gone to take a bath, and she is required to wait in the common room with the other knights. Milfiria is irritated by the fact that the other knights claim to find her a little stupid and call her funny names due to the fact that she is small. Kix, on the other hand, believes that Milfiria is intelligent. Despite the fact that Kix does not appear to consider her to be stupid, which she appreciates, she despises the fact that he picks her up so suddenly. She thinks about the time when she had no enemies in the mountains, but now she is called a fool for being a spirit. While Tina is telling Kix to stop trying to hold her up because it will only make her hate him, Milfiria moves away from that location and goes towards a hole in the wall that she saw. However, when she gets too close to the hole, which smells like animal, she is confronted by a rat, which frightens both her and Tina. Meanwhile, all of the male knights react in a normal manner. Tina asks the male knights to quickly fill the hole again, but Mil hides behind them. This occurs while the male knights are pondering how the rat could have made such a hole in the wall, as well as the fact that foxes consume rats. Milfiria is irritated by the fact that they continue to make fun of her for jumping in such a manner, despite the fact that she is a fox. This is because she was taken aback when she saw the rat. Kix uses this to demonstrate that she is truly intelligent, as she tries to express her embarrassment and screams internally for them to stop talking. She jumps at Kix and tries to scratch him with her small paws, but it only has the effect of making the male knights laugh more. While they are laughing loudly, the chief walks into the common room and tells them to be quiet about it. He then leaves immediately after saying that they are permitted to enjoy their time here, but that they should be quiet about it. The chief did not appear to be angry, but rather envious of the fact that the knights were having such a good time. The knights believe that it was very frightening to see the chief in such a state. As a result, Milfiria and Tina are confused. Milfiria's realization that the chief may not have any friends comes to her as a result of the fact that he was afraid of her in the past and that he appears to be envious of everyone else who appears to be having a good time. While Tina and Milfiria are uncertain, one of the male knights is about to tell them a rumor about the chief. At that moment, the commander enters the room after he has finished his bath. Milfiria considers this to be the perfect timing because she did not intend to ask in the first place. Milfiria makes a decision to always be nice to the chief whenever they meet again. The following day begins in the same manner, with Milfiria and the commander being frightened to see each other's faces in the morning. After that, they both go out for the commander's early training in the cold weather, and then they eat a meal in the cafeteria while everyone else stares at them. The fact that Milfiria was allowed to go out in the morning today, as well as the fact that the commander petted her quite a bit today, both make her very happy. She continues to play in the snow, but then she is filled up with snow once more. This causes the big brother knight and his friend to laugh at her once more, despite the fact that it is difficult for them to laugh after having gone through such harsh training. Anxious that they will consider her to be an idiot, she flees from them in an attempt to escape their eyes. She makes her escape into the stables, where she encounters the commander's horse, which has a very powerful and muscular build, and the scent of the commander is all over it. There is a very broken conversation between the horse and Milfiria, but she understands what he is trying to say by feeling it. This translates to the horse asking her if she is doing well now, and he will threaten the dog the next time it tries to attack her. Milfiria is able to understand what he is trying to say. She then goes to see the next horse, which is the one that is not the commander's horse. This horse is very similar to the commander's horse, but it has gorgeous hair and is as clean as soap itself. When Milfiria is suddenly confronted by the branch chief, who has entered the stable from behind her, the chief immediately displays a disturbing expression upon seeing Milfiria. Instead of paying attention to her, he immediately goes to his horse, which he calls Irax, and inquires about how it is feeling and whether or not it has eaten yet. Milfiria is perplexed as to why the Ice Branch chief does not have any friends, because she is surprised to see that he is so kind and does not observe any problem with a person having a conversation with an animal. When she takes a closer look at the horse and the chief, she comes to the realization that he does not actually have any friends. This realization causes her to cry because of the sheer shock that she has just experienced. She comes to the conclusion that the chief of the branch is a slacker because she has such a pretty face. but his personality is dull and serious, which is the reason he does not have any friends. As a result, she makes the decision to encourage him to make friends from this point forward. She moves forwards towards his feet and rubs his boots in an attempt to get his attention. However, he makes another strange face looking at her, and then quickly hides his face by hugging his horse. This leads Milfiria to believe that he is okay with horses but not with foxes. As she is unable to comprehend what he is looking for, she begins to experience a state of panic. She makes an effort to explain to him that she is not his enemy because she is not a human but rather a fox or a spirit, depending on what he is more comfortable with. Ironically, she panics more than he does, despite the fact that she is attempting to convey to him that she comprehends his position. It is then that she gets a painful glimpse of the chief looking at her, which leads her to believe that he does not want to be friends with her. However, the chief then calls out to her and immediately gives her a tight hug while making a very regretful face. He makes a very happy expression as he touches her soft and fluffy fur, as well as her cute little paws, which freaks Milfiria out because she finds it cute. However, it is strange because the branch chief is supposed to be cold, but all of a sudden he is her friend. At the same time that the chief tells her that he loves her and questions her cuteness, she is concerned about his horse friend who is following him behind him. As soon as he realizes that his horse, Irax, is irritated, he gives it a compliment, but only with a partial heart. Following this, the chief gives both of them a hug together, expressing his love for them. This causes Milfiria to realize that he is unable to open up to humans, but that he has a tremendous amount of affection for animals. After that, she makes the decision to touch his hands because he is the leader of the group and he will not mind. This causes the chief to shed tears of joy, and he continues to hug her throughout the entire encounter. Grail appears and notices the chief with Milfiria. She licks him as he questions why is she licking so furiously for. He beams with happiness and talks to her, telling her he has nothing on him. Grail looks at the chief and regrets coming here. The chief name is Cromwell, as Grail is aware that he loves animals. He knows every member of this fort except the newcomers. He has a keen interest in horses and small cute things. He is also known for the way he speaks kindly to his beloved horses and carefully takes care of their coats. In the winter he would even take care of the birds. He even named a stray cat Nora and took care of it. And the way he was so depressed when Nora wandered off. The moment his ice mask crumbles when a snow rabbit appears nearby. He is aware that everyone seems something else. Grail thinks that Cromwell seems to think he's hiding it well. Grail wonders why isn't he just proud of it. He keeps his "I don't care about animals" attitude and everyone pretends to not notice. He decides to wait over there. Cromwell notices him standing there. Their eyes meet as Grail turns around to stand in front of him. They both are silent for a while before Cromwell puts Milfiria down and stands up. He calls out to Grail and questions what does he want. Grail responds that is not the thing and he was just looking for Milfiria, causing Cromwell to wonder if the fox name is Milfiria. He calls out to Grail and tells him that he is supposed to return it to the wild, but if he names it then it is going to get attached to him. Grail ponders that he's talking about Nora. He asks if Cromwell came to see Irax. He responds that he came here to take care of him, as it is a knight's duty to properly take care of his horse. Grail ponders that he's very thorough. He ponders that he is sure Cromwell would have enjoyed a little more time alone, and he's sorry that he found him. Milfiria calls out to Cromwell. She begins to roam around him. He finds her very cute, but decides to act as if he is annoyed and tells her to get out of the way. He yells at her to not just dirt around. Grail ponders and he's going to kick her and he means it. He wonders when did she get so attached to him. He calls out to her. She turns around to look at him as he feels betrayed. She runs to him and begins to cling on to him. Grail ponders that Cromwell wears a mask of ice to avoid disappointing his men. He is probably very concerned about how he is perceived by those around him. He is aware that Bumble comes from a noble family. He was promoted to his current position as a branch chief by those at the top that he cannot claim that he got there on his own merits and accomplishments. He seemed to be concerned about himself. He heard it was his wish to come from King's Landing to this northern fort. In the middle of winter, the weather is so severe that many people freeze to death, and the knights were all men who'd been treated as troublemakers by the other branches of the order. The connections of Cromwell's family won't work here. He knows that in such a place he has made his mark, and he is determined to build up his reputation. One questions if he is a noble kid, the other responds that he is just a small wimpy man and he would not last the winter. Grail thinks that a lot of people did not like him at first, but that changed as they started working together. Grail knows that he sparred with him for some days and he's so strong. He is a sharp guy. He thought he was a real prick, but he is a real decent guy and he knows that he could count on him. He is aware that he is a bit harsh on them, but he is even harder on himself. Grail ponders that Cromwell himself is still suffering from a lack of complete confidence. Now everyone in the fort recognizes him as a branch chief, and there is a lot of human emotion under that mask of ice, and that he sometimes waves it into the harshness of his words to his subordinates. He is also giving the men and women a hint of love behind their back. Being an animal lover does not make him any less reputable now. In fact, everyone is taking it into a positive light. Grail hopes that he realizes that soon. He calls him their clumsy chief. Cromwell misses Fluffy as Milferia decides to be his confidant until he has a human friend. The next day Milferia went to the stables before noon, and there he was. He seemed to have finished his work early. Milferia wonders if he's always here around this time. Milferia sticks to him, telling him she's his friend. Cromwell notices her and becomes shocked seeing her. He even gets a nosebleed. Milferia observes his expression and wonders if he is okay. She thinks maybe he is not used to interacting with her yet. She apologizes to him as he responds that it's okay and he just wasn't ready. She looks at him and guesses a nosebleed can be beautiful if it is from a good-looking person. He finds it painful, but she ponders that she is not going to stop being his friend just because of this. She's going to get to know him very well. After a few weeks at the fort, she has gotten a lot less shy. She has gotten to know Tina and the other knights. Kix is the only one she's wary of. She has grown accustomed to being caught off guard. She also played with the one-eyed knight and got jerky. She enjoys her time every day. When she is not working, she plays outside and asks Big Brother to remove the snow from her fur, and after lunch, she takes a nap in the stable. Because the horse of the one-eyed knight is there, and she feels safe. When she gets muddy from running around, she gets taken to the beach again. She could not escape, so she closed her eyes and stayed there, thinking that she will never look in there. The baths at the fort are like a hot spring with a strong energy of exhaustion, which she does not like. At the end of the day, the voice and hands of the one-eyed knight are so gentle as he puts her to sleep. He wishes her a good night. She thinks it is like a spell to help her sleep well. She incredibly loves this moment, and so they live out their days at the fort peacefully. She wonders how many days she has been here. She thinks it is about time that Mother came back. She is aware that she will have to go back to her home in the mountains, but if she suddenly disappeared, all the knights would be worried. She cannot speak, but she wants to say thank you, but she cannot let her mother worry. She remembers entering the fort from here. She goes to that place and thinks that if she's going back, she will start from here again. She wonders why she does not just go home and come back to play again. But she doesn't know when she can come back and wonders if her mother would let her come back. She closes her eyes as she realizes that the wind and snow are getting stronger. Someone calls out to her as she looks and finds Grail. He is really glad to find her. After bringing her inside, he tells her that he's going back to his room now. She looks out of the window as she realizes that the windows are white with snow stuck to them, and she cannot look outside and the room is dark because there is no light coming through. She remembers that in her previous life, she has only seen this kind of snow in 2 different places. She's sure it's a lot of work, but she has been thinking that she can build all the huts she wants. But now that she has seen it, She is aware it is not so easy, and she does not think this is the time to be building huts. She has been banned from playing outside, and decides to go to bed. The sound of snow causes her to flinch as she realizes she cannot sleep now. She knows that if they get a lot of snow, it will be hard for all the nights. Kix mentions that it has been snowing for 3 days. He's aware it is a little crazy that it is snowing this much. He questions if they think it is going to fill up the fort. She wonders that she's too young to know how to stop it, and she's getting a little scared of snow even though she's a snow spirit. They were told that the branch leaders who went to check on the town are back. She realizes that Grail is back and rushes out after him. Tina calls out to her, but she does not stop. As she calls out to him, he asks her if she has been a good girl. She ponders that she was. Tina thanks Grail and asks him how was the town. He states it is not as much damaged as he thought, just a few old shacks that got knocked down. He also states that the people are used to heavy snowfalls and they are well stocked up and should be okay for the time being. The chief tells them to take a break and get troops 5 and 8 instead. Tina asks them if they too are leaving again. She tells them that she thinks they should take a break. Milfiria also hopes that they do not go back to work. Grail tells if they take too much time, the sun will be gone by the time they get back. He states that they are going to MT, Snolia, where the spirits live. Milfiria is shocked as she wonders if he said Snolia. The old folks in the town were making a lot of noise. The spirits are angry because they made offerings at the altar and begged for forgiveness. But Hay said this blizzard would never stop, so they went to the altar in Snolia. The old people were going to the altar, so they stopped them, promising that they would go for them. If the blizzard continues tomorrow, it will be difficult to get to the altar, so they should get there while they can. Tina wonders if this fresh snow is really caused by a spirit. Cromwell tells her that he is skeptical, but they are foolish if they disregard the words of the locals who have lived here for a long time. Realizing that if it continues like this, there will be a lot of damage. He tells the knights that they should not be lazy and think that it will stop if they just let it go. He wants to do what they can now that he can afford to do so. He tells them that he does not want to force them, and it is not that far to the altar. But it is dangerous to go through this snowstorm, so those who are not willing to are allowed to stay at the fortress. One states that if the chief and the commander are going, then they are going too, and that the snowstorm is nothing to worry about. Milfiria tries to follow them as Grail notices her and picks her up. He tells her that she's staying here. He questions if she does not like being far away from him. The chief tells him that he cannot take her with him as she would slow them down. Milfiria stares at him as he looks away, trying to not melt by her cuteness. Grail responds that he is aware of that and gives her to Tina. He tells Tina to take care of her and he will be back soon. He tells Milfiria that once he is back, they will play again. They leave and embark on their journey as the knights realize that it is getting colder and it's starting to hurt. One of them says that it's not all, as the higher they climb the worse the visibility will get. Grail tells them to keep on moving. Kix questions that he wonders if offerings are enough to make the spirits forgive them when they don't know what caused their anger. Grail responds that he guesses so, but without forgiveness, this blizzard could last forever. He is aware that nothing will happen if they do not try. However, he has been to the altar many times, but he does not know if they can get there without getting lost in this storm. He wonders if they should retreat while they still have strength left in them and their horses. Both him and Cromwell stare at each other as they ponder this is too dangerous. The storm begins to decrease as everyone is shocked, questioning if it actually stopped. They are told to not let their guard down. They notice the front and sees that they have already arrived at the altar. The chief wonders if the snowstorm was caused by the spirits. Kix walks ahead as Grail calls out to him, telling him that he should not go there alone. They wonder if the spirits would actually appear. The chief asks the commander if he has ever seen a snow spirit, and he responds that he did not. It is a long story that the snow spirit is watching over their country and that they occasionally assist the royal families, but they have never seen them in person. Grail mentions that he has heard she is a very beautiful woman. Cromwell states that he has seen her, mentioning that he was the prince's personal bodyguard. Kix asks Cromwell if she's pretty. He responds that she was beautiful. Right then, the spirits appear in front of them. He observes her, seeing her skin is as white as snow and her hair are shiny. He thinks that her fur, which looked soft, must have been cold, thinking just like Milfiria. Grail tries to get back to his senses as he ponders that her beauty is unmistakable, and that is the spirit of a Snolia. He commands the knights to not stare at the spirit's face, but instead they should shift their gaze to look at her necklace. He thinks that thanks to Milfiria, they all should remember her and make sure to keep their composure. The chief calls out to the spirit as she mutters her child. She then yells that her child is missing and asks if they humans know where her Milfiria is. She questions if they are the one that stole their child and asks them what do they want. Grail is about to take his sword out before Cromwell asks him to wait. He tells the spirit that they are the knights that defend this country. They just came here to stop the blizzard and they would not kidnap her children. They did not even know she had a child to begin with. She mentions knights of the fort. She states no wonder they did not know and mentions that a child of a spirit is weak and small, but when they grow up they become powerful. They are wary of those who would try to take advantage of them. Grail questions how in the world did they know she has a child. Grail mentions that assuming they knew. He thinks it would be difficult for a human to reach this place, this time of year. She states that some do come up, and mentions that she did let an avalanche swallow them before they got too close. This causes the knights to be terrified. The spirit mentions that it is not as if she left her home voluntarily, mentioning that her child is a baby, and there is no way she could have made it down the mountain on those lovely little legs. She continues that she's a timid little girl and she must be so scared right now. Grail tells the spirit that she should let them help her. He mentions that they will do everything they can to get her child back. He asks her to stop the blizzard for the sake of the search. She mentions that it is true that she caused this result, but she did not mean to harm the townspeople who serve her with this fine beverage. But she just cannot control her power. She just gets so angry when she thinks of the people who kidnapped her daughter. This causes the storm to increase. Grail wonders if this means that this blizzard will never stop unless the spirit's child returns. Kix calls out to him and tells him that if they do not do something, they will be in trouble too. Grail is aware that they have to go back to the form. But first, he calls out the snow spirit. He asks her to tell him about her child. Without that information, there is no way they can find her. About the gender as well as to know what she looks like. The spirit questions tell him. She also asks why does she smell her child on him. She begins to get angry as she yells at him and questions where did he take her child. Meanwhile, in the fort, she knows that her voice cannot reach her as with the wind howling like this. She is aware that her mother is angry and it is because of her. She would be away from home for a month and she was supposed to be a good girl and stay at home, and now she is gone. Of course she's angry. She also thinks that mother would think she's playing around. She was the cause of the blizzard, so she definitely had to go. She wonders if the one-eyed knight and the chief are all right. She cannot stop running around because of anxiety. Tina tells her to not worry and mentions both the commander and the chief are capable of making decisions. If they sense any danger, they will be right back. Milfiria has been feeling restless all this time, and she's afraid something bad is going to happen. She wonders what would happen if the one-eyed knight made it to the altar and met her mother. She thinks if her mother is taking it out on him. She thinks that she has to get to Grail. Tina asks her that she loves the commander, does not she? Tina tells her that if she is so worried, then they can wait for him at the door. She picks Milfiria up before they're told if they are going to wait at the door, then they should not as the storm is getting worse. They mentioned it is a snowstorm, and if they stay outside they will freeze before they know it. And maybe they should go pick up the other. Questioning if they're sure they want her to wait here. She thinks that in her previous life she was just a human, but in this life she is a spirit and she has to protect everyone. She knows that she wants to go to Grail. She knows she has gotten a lot of help, and now it is her turn. Tina notices something on her, questioning what is it before she realizes it is a little snowstorm. Milfiria begins to float in the air as everyone becomes worried. She has no idea what is happening. As she disappears, she wonders if she died. Her body turned into snow and disappeared. She thinks if this is how spirits die. She then sees something. While playing little snowflakes and her paws touching something, she finds it fresh and realizes it is her favorite soft fluffy snow. She wonders if she is alive as she notices Grail. She becomes really happy that he is okay. Her mother notices her and calls out to her as Grail turns to look at her. Mother is astonished as she stares at her. Milfiria looks at Grail and wonders if they were about to face each other. He asks her how did she get here. Even the knights are shocked to find her. She thinks perhaps she disappeared and moved when Mother went to King's Landing. She is aware that she was just thinking about Grail, but she is so glad that everyone is safe. My mother calls out her name and gives her a hug, being really glad that she's safe, and mentions she has no idea how worried she was. Milfiria knows that she must apologize to her mother first. She is sorry for bullying her, and that she will not leave the house again without permission, so her mother should not cry. She licks off her mother's tears. Her mother tells her that she's so glad. The knights are unable to process the situation as they wonder if Milfiria happens to be the spirit's child. Her mother asks her that she got her with her power, did not she, and tells her that she did well, stating that she made it back to her mother herself. The spirit's attention then turns towards Grail as she becomes really angry and calls out to him, stating that she's now aware he was the one who had kidnapped her daughter. Milfiria is dumbfounded as she thinks about kidnapping her. She calls out to her mother as she questions what is going on, stating that she thought her mother was angry with her for leaving without permission. Grail asks her to wait a minute before the spirit tells him to shut up, making it clear that she won't listen to his excuses. The spirit's anger causes the storm to increase as Milfiria panics, noticing her mother's anger. She tries her best to tell her mother that he did not kidnap her. The spirit tells the rest of the knights in the fortress too that they're done. Milfiria realizes that her mother is unable to listen to her. The storm begins to cause them serious issue as Milfiria becomes aware that the amount of powerful power that her mother is using will cause all of them to freeze in an instant. She tries to tell her mother that she's her favorite mother. She loves Grail so much as she tries to stop, but Grail and the spirit gives each other deadly glares. Milfiria shouts stop as everyone's attention turns towards her. The spirit with a confused look asks her if it was her. Milfiria looks both ways as she thinks that it sounded like a child just now. She thinks if it was really her. She cannot believe if it was really her. She mutters her words and she speaks. She panics as she realizes it is her first time speaking in this world's language, so she is still a bit sloppy. She hopes that they understand. She calls out to her mother before she flinches as her mother tells her to not say that. Her mother is frustrated as she tells her that she's certain her first words will be mother. The spirit asks Milfiria to go ahead and say mother. Milfiria finally calls her mother as she grabs her tighter and beams with joy to be called a mother. Milfiria asks her to listen. She tells her mother that she is wrong. They did not take her. She went herself. Her mother is shocked as Milfiria continues and mentions that there was no one here. That is why she went out, as she had begun to feel lonely. But she did not want to go back. Milfiria has trouble saying one-eyed knight. She tells her mother that they saved her life and they are good people. She is the one who is bad as she went down the mountain herself, mentioning that if mother should be mad, it should be on her, and that she can be mad at her all she wants. The spirit smiles and asks Milfiria, isn't it nice? Hugging Milfiria tighter. Her mother tells her that she thought she was just a baby, but she climbed down the mountain all by herself with those little legs. She asks Milfiria to take her time and be her little girl for a little while longer. She continues to kiss Milfiria as Milfiria tells her that everyone is watching them. Milfiria apologizes once again, questioning if the spirit can forgive her. Her mother tells her of course she can, and that she was not angry with her in the first place. Melphiria asks her that she won't get angry with the people of the fort too, right? The spirit realizes that and tells them that she is sorry for what she has done to them, and she was the one who was in the wrong. The chief stares at her as she continues that she's not so calm when it comes to her child and asks them to please forgive her for trying to hurt them. Grail mentions that he hopes this cleared up the misunderstanding. Melphiria stares at Grail as she keeps on thinking about how she does not know how to say one-eyed knight. She is aware that she wants to say something to him. The spirit again apologizes to him and tells him that if he needs help, he can always come to this altar and she will help him. She also asks him to please apologize to the townspeople for the trouble she has caused them, and she will try not to let it snow until the snow from the blizzard has wilted. She thanks them sincerely for protecting her child. She asks them how is this. The knight find it good as they don't seem to be mad at her. Melphiria is aware that she's the one who started it all and wonders if they will be able to forgive her. Grail has his eyes on Melphiria as the spirit tells them that now she will be returning to her home with her child. Melphiria panics and calls out to her mother, telling her to wait for a second. The spirit tells them that they too should return to the fort before the sun goes down. She calls out to her mother asking her to wait and for them to not go yet. She is aware that she has not apologized to the knights and she has not thanked them for their help. She is not ready to say goodbye as she stares at them. She tries her best and shouts that she is sorry for all the trouble and thanks them for their help, stating that it was fun. She also mentions that she loves everyone at the fort. Her mother turns around with her as Grail rushes to grab her hand, but she soon disappears. Grail stands there looking at his hand. They are back as Tina rushes to him. She's really glad to see Grail back. The chief is depressed as well as Grail is as he calls out Melphiria's name. Melphiria, now back in her home, thinks that the air that is colder than anywhere else and a silver-white landscape without sound. She is aware it has been a long time since she has felt such peace and quiet. At the fort, everywhere she turned, there was the sound of someone else. She doesn't know why she does not feel at ease. She is sure to be safe here without any enemies, but she wonders how everyone else is doing. She thinks about the commander and the branch chief, Tina and Kix as well as others. Her mother calls out to her and asks her what's wrong. She tells Melphiria that her mother is here. Her mother tells her that she won't be leaving for a while now, so she should not be too anxious. Melphiria asks her mother if she can play at the port. Her mother calls out to her, but she tells her mother that she misses everyone at the fort, stating that she wants to see them again. Her mother is astonished as she thinks about it. The commander is thinking about her too, as he ponders, nor that he thinks about it. That low body temperature of hers. It felt good to touch her fur, and it was always so cold and illuminating, thinking that it must have been a characteristic of the snow spirit. He's aware that he could have done Snolia a favor if he had figured it out. As she said, she would help him if he needed anything. He ponders that there is nothing more reassuring than having the spirit of snow on their side, and he is glad to hear it. But his attention turns towards the knights who are depressed. They know that the only thing that is left to heal them is the hot springs. They miss stroking that fur, and it was their comfort. Grail asks them to not be so down. He mentions that it is not like it is a goodbye for life, as she may come back to visit if she's allowed to. They guess they will see, as they say, that spirits have a long lifespan, so their sense of time will be different. It could be 10 years before she comes back. They're aware that she lives with her mother most of the time, and she will forget all about them. Tina appears to be really sad as well. Cromwell has been holed up in his room since then, not even bothering to look around. Grail hopes that he is not crying as he cannot blame everyone for being so sad right now. If everyone is in the same boat, he will have to cheer them up. He is aware that he has to get his feelings in order today. He looks at the place that she used to sleep at. He goes out and does all the chores and notices everyone to be sad. He is aware that he must document everything about this event and send a letter to the commander of the Knights in King's Landings. Especially that the spirit of snow has a child. He knows that Snolia did not want to make it public. but he has to report that too. He has entrusted Cromwell with the letter to the king, but he wonders if he is making any progress. In the meantime, he decides to go and check up on him. He turns around and becomes shocked to find Milfiria there. He apologizes for stepping up on her, stating that it must have hurt a lot. He asks her if she's okay. She tells him that she's fine, and it is okay. He realizes, yes, he remembers that she can talk now. He is quiet as he stares at her for a while before he questions why is she here. She apologizes to him and wonders if it is a bad time, stating that she will come back. He tells her no, it is not, and mentions that he is just a little surprised. He tells her it is nice to see her again. He questions how did she get here. She tells him that she used something called teleportation. That is the same thing that she used yesterday. She does seem she can come all the way from the top of the mountain in just a few moments. He finds that very amazing as he pats her. He asks her what about Snowly, if her mother allowed her to come here. She tells him that she told her, and then she said it was okay just for a little bit. So she will come back for a little while every day. She successfully calls him One-Eyed Knight. She smiles and mentions show. He asks her is that what she has been calling him. She tells him yes, as she did not know his name, and she asked her mother to teach her the words. He picks her up as he tells her, if that is the case, then they should tell others that she has come to visit. And they should do something about this atmosphere that has been around since she left, as he's basically asking her to save the branch chief's life. She wonders what is the matter. He tells her that she will understand when they get there. She questions if he means to get there like this. He tells her if she had been a wild fox, he would have returned her to the wild eventually, and he also would not have picked her up, so she would not be dependent on humans. But now he knows it is not one of those. He laughs as she questions. Why is he laughing? Tina and Kix appears to thank him for the hard work as they notice Milfiria. They are shocked to see her. She notices that everyone is smiling. She wonders if the thought she would not come back after yesterday. She is happy to see all of them again here in this fort. When she goes back, she will thank her mother once more for her forgiveness. The chief begins to cry as he looks at her. He tells her he's not crying and he's fine. She's aware that it is not okay. He apologizes to her, mentioning that he lost it. He tells her that he just wanted to tell her something. He states that they have to tell His Majesty the King about this blizzard and about the snow spirit Snowlia. He tells her that her mother said she has not told anyone about her, and he thought it would be best to let her know in advance that they will, and ask her if she could tell her mother for them. She mentions that all right, she can do that. He begins to cry again and hugs her tightly. He tells her to just let him do that for a while. She wishes for him to not cry. She is back home as her mother welcomes her back. She tells Mom about the things that the chief asked her to. Her mother responds that she doesn't mind it if they let her know, but it would be troublesome to have the other side prying into their affairs. She mentions if that is the case, then she guesses they will have to go there. She asks her mom if she's going to King's Landing. Her mother tells her this time she will take Milfiria with her. She is surprised as she thinks that she is going to meet the king. They can decide to go before she asks her mother to hold on. She mentions that all the knights were petting her and her fur, so she will have to get a little better groomed before she goes. In the King's Landing, her mother tells them that if anything happens to this girl, she has no idea what she might do. Even she knows what she is doing, so she would like to tell the humans to listen to her carefully. Milfiria is shocked, trying to tell her mother that she is talking to the king. She is so nervous, but she is even more nervous because her mother is talking to the king in a commanding tone. The king finds her so cute. They find just looking at her very soothing. They are sure that she is very comfortable to pet. Milfiria stares at them and wonders if they're angry. She's sorry that she is just really nervous. They think that they seem to have been born in a very good time, because it is not often that one gets to see a spirit at an early age. They talk about two of them. The king mentions she's a child of snow and fire. Milfiria is confused as she wonders child of fire.
Lara's eyes widen as a revelation washes over her, the realization that the spirit of fire also has a child. She processes this new information with a thoughtful gaze, noting that she sees how it all fits together now, concluding that there must be other spirits as well. Beside her, the small white spirit, Snolia, watches curiously as Elara echoes the thought aloud, questioning if there truly is a child of fire. Elara leans in closer, her expression softening into a warm, affectionate smile as she looks at the fluffy white creature. Her surprise shifts into genuine delight as she marvels at the fact that it can talk, complimenting the spirit by telling it that it has a lovely voice. Baron Valtier gazes out toward a distant horizon where palm trees sway against a desert backdrop, his profile etched with a calm authority. He turns his attention back to the conversation, asking if Snolia hasn't told them yet. He explains the lore of the land, stating that there is a fire spirit to the south of this country who has children of his own, while Snolia sits quietly by, its tiny form twitching with bashful energy. The small, snowy creature known as Snolia tilts its head in confusion, the name of this mysterious stranger echoing in its mind like a forgotten melody. A flicker of realization crosses its wide, innocent eyes as it ponders the fact that this man is nearly the same age as itself, a detail that feels strangely significant. Nearby, Baron Valtier rests comfortably, a serene and paternal smile softening his aged features. He speaks with a calm, melodic tone, clarifying that the person in question would be approximately 6 months older than Mulfiria, grounding the conversation in a historical timeline of their lineage. But the lighthearted mood vanishes in an instant, replaced by a suffocating wave of irritation that emanates from Elara. Her face contorts, her brow knitting together in a fierce, scowling grimace that sends a literal chill through the air. A dark jagged aura seems to pulse around her, causing Snolia to flinch back in alarm at the sudden shift in temperament. Finally, Elara shuts her eyes tight, forcing out a sharp, weary exhale as if trying to blow away the very memory of the conversation. Her voice is a flat, icy command, leaving no room for argument as she declares that they are to speak no more of the matter. Snolia peers forward with an unnerving intensity, her voice cutting through the tension as she warns that it is already too late for any second thoughts. Nearby, Baron Valtier's expression is tight with a mixture of fear and disbelief. He looks toward his companions, his voice heavy with the terrifying possibility of their enemy's arrival, wondering aloud what will happen if he actually shows up. Elara, her eyes fixated on the space ahead, whispers a grim confirmation that the stories they heard weren't merely rumors, but a reality they are now forced to face. Without warning, the silence is shattered by a violent surge of energy. A spectral, fiery hand erupts from the very fabric of the room, clawing its way into existence with a series of sharp, crackling bursts. Elara and Snolia can only stand in stunned silence as the wall before them warps under the intense heat of a presence that has finally bridged the gap into their world. A sudden surge of overwhelming heat floods the chamber as a tall, imposing figure manifests with effortless confidence. Shirtless and displaying a lean, powerful physique, the man known as Ignis stands with a relaxed smirk, his skin adorned with swirling, tribal tattoos that seem to pulse with an inner flame. His dark, unruly hair frames eyes that sparkle with a mischievous yet ancient intensity as he strikes a pose that radiates raw authority. Behind him, the witnesses are frozen in a spectrum of disbelief. Elara's expression is one of sharp, guarded calculation, her brow furrowed as she evaluates the sudden appearance of this legendary entity. To her side, Snolia is completely stunned, her mouth hanging open in a silent gasp while her eyes widen in pure wonder. Baron Valtier, however, seems to find a strange comfort in the moment, his face softening into a serene, knowing smile as he closes his eyes against the radiant aura. The tension in the room snaps with a collective, frantic realization that echoes through the air. The spirit of fire! Even the tiny, wide-eyed spirit clutched against Elara's shoulder seems paralyzed by the sheer magnitude of the power now standing before them. A sudden, boisterous energy breaks the silence as a man with sun-kissed skin and messy dark hair beams a wide, toothy grin. He raises a hand in a casual wave, his voice booming with a familiarity that borders on intrusive. It has been a long time, he notes, his eyes lighting up as he recognizes the figure before him, calling out, "Isn't that Snolia?" His presence is overwhelming, a sharp contrast to the tranquil atmosphere. However, the warmth of his greeting is met with an immediate wall of icy disdain. Snolia's expression soars instantly, her brow twitching in irritation as she clutches the small, fluffy Ignis protectively against her chest. The little creature stares out with wide, confused eyes, mirroring the sudden tension that thickens the air. The man Hilg pauses for a fraction of a second, his expression shifting into a mask of mild surprise as he registers the cold reception. Snolia doesn't hesitate, her patience snapping like a dry twig. She recoils, her posture stiffening as she barks a sharp command that cuts through his cheerfulness like a blade. "Hilg, stay away from us!" she shouts, her voice filled with a mixture of genuine alarm and deep-seated annoyance. As the echoes of her outburst fade, a haunting realization flickers behind her eyes. She feels the weight of his presence, the vibration of his words lingering in her mind. His voice, she thinks to herself, the familiar timbre sending a jolt of recognition through her that only strengthens her resolve to keep him at arm's length. Ignis maintains a steady, knowing look as Snolia erupts into a fit of exasperation. She flails her arms, her voice sharp with a frustration she claims to have harbored forever. To her, his proximity is a physical trial. She insists that they are made weak by his presence, and that she feels as though she might melt away if she stays near him for another moment. Unfazed by her outburst, Ignis flashes a broad, charming smile that radiates a warmth she clearly finds stifling. He encourages her to relax, noting that there is no need to avoid him with such intensity. While he admits that her own icy temperament is something he hasn't quite adjusted to yet, he confesses with a wink that he doesn't find her company hateful at all. The tension breaks into a fit of boisterous laughter as Ignis leans into the humor of the moment. He jokingly remarks on the sudden heat wave she's causing, his mirth doubling despite her sharp demands for him to stop. His laughter fills the space, a stark contrast to her cooling glares and the small, sweating avatar of her annoyance. Eventually Ignis settles down, rubbing the back of his head with a sheepish, lopsided grin. He concedes that the heat is indeed getting to him, admitting that he's starting to feel as sluggish as if he were soaking in a bathhouse or sitting by the fireplace back at the fort. With a casual apology, he attempts to bridge the gap, even as the small, disgruntled Snowly beside him continues to radiate silent, overheated protest. Ignis reels back in shock, his eyes widening as Elara fiercely interposes herself between him and the small creature she cradles. With a protective snarl, Elara warns him to stay away from her child, leaving Ignis to stammer out in disbelief that he had no idea she was a mother. Caught in the middle of the confrontation, the small, fluffy Snowlia lets out a faint, stunned sound, completely overwhelmed by the sudden spotlight. Elara holds her tight, her expression a mask of cold determination as she shields the little one from any prying eyes. Ignis cannot help himself, his curiosity overriding the tension as he leans in to get a better look at the small creature. He questions Elara with a confused gaze, his voice trailing off as he tries to make sense of the unexpected presence. Squinting at Snowly's features, Ignis notes that by the looks of her, she must be at least 1 year old. He demands to know why Elara didn't tell him sooner, his face a mix of frustration and hurt. Snowly breaks into a nervous sweat under the intense scrutiny, while Elara's temper flares, reminding him sharply that she never told him for a reason and once again barking for him to stay away. Elara snaps back with a defiant shout of confirmation, her patience worn thin. Ignis looks at her with wide, hurt eyes, his voice cracking as he asks if the child belongs to the element of water, and if this secret is the real reason she refused to make a baby with him. Ignis stands tall, his broad back turned as he looks toward the others with a silent, stern resolve. He thinks to himself that both of them should refrain from speaking in such a manner while the children are present, guarding the innocence of the young ones. In the shadow of his presence, Elara offers a soft, reverent murmur. Thanking her king as Snowlia sits quietly by her side, the room crackles with friction as Baron Valtyr erupts in a fit of frustration, his face contorting with disdain. He complains loudly about the stifling heat, declaring with a sharp edge to his voice that he cannot even think of mingling with the likes of those before him. Lady Seraphina stands beside him, her expression a mask of weary elegance as she navigates the volatile temperament of the Baron. Seated once more, Ignis lets out a quiet breath of acknowledgement, his expression softening into one of weary agreement. He admits that they are right and that it is indeed too soon to be discussing such heavy, complicated matters. His posture is relaxed but heavy, reflecting the burden of leadership and the difficult choices that lie ahead. A hush falls as the focus shifts to the small, white form of Snowlia, whose wide eyes are filled with sudden, profound questions. The spirit ponders the implications of the conversation, wondering if the truth means that a father exists somewhere in the world. Snowlia's thoughts wander through the mysteries of spirit birth, realizing that the answers are not as simple as they seem and that much remains hidden in the shadows of the past. A sudden burst of magical energy crackles through the air, manifesting in a soft puff of smoke as a sleek, midnight furred feline takes shape. This is Ignis in his compact form, his tail flickering with ethereal flames that cast a warm, rhythmic glow against the distinctive leopard-like spots marking his back. He stands with a regal poise, his amber eyes narrowed in a sharp, calculating gaze that belies his small stature. Nearby, Hilg watches the spectacle with a calm curiosity, his expression relaxed as he observes the creature's sudden appearance. In the background, Lady Seraphina is struck with silent amazement, her hands clasped nervously as she peers over at the mystical transformation. At the newcomer's feet, Snowly is utterly captivated, her large, round eyes shimmering with pure adoration as she tilts her head back. She lets out a long, breathless cry of wonder, "Oh, oh, oh!" her mouth hanging open in complete awe. To the fluffy, white spirit, the fairy guardian isn't a threat at all, but something precious, as she can't help but think to herself how incredibly cute he is. Ignis leans forward with a warm, disarming smile that radiates an effortless charm. His bare chest and arms are marked by intricate, charcoal-colored flame patterns, and a heavy mala of polished beads hangs around his neck. He looks toward the small, fluffy companion and offers a gentle compliment, noting that she is quite pretty as well. The words hit their mark with precision. Snowlia feels her heart skip a beat, her tiny form trembling as a heavy blush washes over her. completely captivated by the charismatic man. The atmosphere shifts to a more analytical tension as the focus turns to the small, dark creature nearby. Its fur is a deep, velvety black, but it is the striking flame red eyes that command attention, glowing with an otherworldly intensity. Faint, leopard-like rosettes are visible on its hindquarters, leading to a silent question with those specific eyes and that distinct pattern. Could the fabled child of the fire spirit truly take the form of a black panther? The tiny creature stands still, its presence surprisingly weighty despite its size. Chaos suddenly erupts as a white blur streaks across the air. Ellora's face contorts into a mask of pure shock, her mouth falling open as she watches her companion bolt. She reaches out frantically, her voice sharp with desperation as she calls out for Malfiria to stop. The sudden dash leaves the scene in disarray, the girl's fur-lined collar fluttering as she desperately tries to keep track of the runaway spirit. The sleek, obsidian form of the young panther Ignis looms over Snolia, the small white fox tilting its head with innocent, fluffy curiosity as they meet in the quiet room. Observing this unlikely pair from a short distance, Hilg carries a gentle, indulgent smile, noting that it is a wonderful thing for a child to have friends. Beside him, Malfiria watches with a serene expression, her voice soft as she agrees that the sight is truly pleasant. Yet, the warmth of the moment is punctuated by a sudden pause as Hilg's voice trails off into a lingering but, his expression shifting as he realizes the depth of the situation. In the quiet of his own mind, Ignis reflects on the absurdity of the scene, envisioning a miniature, rounded version of himself standing alongside a puffball like Snolia. He admits to himself that if he were an outsider witnessing a baby fox trying to interact with a baby panther, he would be just as compelled to stop and observe the rare, heartwarming display. However, the weight of the spectator's gaze quickly becomes overwhelming as Hilg is joined by Lady Seraphina and Baron Valtier, their eyes sparkling with an intense, collective adoration. Ignis feels a shiver of self-consciousness as he notes the way everyone is looking at him, realizing there is something undeniably distracting about their focused attention. A gaze filled with a mix of awe and endearment that makes even a fierce predator feel vulnerable. Hilg stands before the small, dark creature, a surprised realization washing over him as he feels the intense heat radiating from its form. He notes that as expected, it is a little hot when one gets close to such a potent fire spirit. The creature, Ignis, remains low to the ground, its tail tipped with a dancing flame that flickers against the air. Hilg's gaze shifts to the fluffy white companion nearby, Snolia, as he wonders silently if the fire spirit is on high alert. To ease the tension, he softly reassures them both, promising that he is not hostile. Ignis responds with a low rhythmic vibration, a series of rumbles that vibrate through its small chest as it paces cautiously. Snolia watches the interaction with wide, innocent eyes, the two spirits finally facing one another in a moment of quiet, watchful curiosity. Ignis stands with a commanding presence, his intricate tattoos winding across his bare chest like living shadows as he looks down at Kylan, the small gray creature in his grasp. With a bluntness that leaves no room for argument, he informs Kylan that he is a boy, before delivering a sharp lesson on manners. It is simply not polite to be rude to one's little sister. Standing just a few paces away, Snolia is struck by the sudden clarity of the situation. Her eyes widen as she repeats the revelation in her mind. Kylan is a boy. But more than that, the weight of Ignis's words settles in her heart. He had called her sister, cementing her place in this strange new family dynamic. The air grows heavy with Ignis's cool authority as he continues to lay down the law. He stares at Kylan with a piercing, dismissive gaze, stating flatly that threats are nothing more than a refuge for the weak. A hint of nonchalance colors his tone as he adds that while he would have preferred a sister, he will settle for the boy before him. This casual dismissal ignites a fire within Snolia. No longer willing to be looked down upon, she bristles with indignation, her small form radiating a fierce pride as she bellows her defiance, declaring to the world that she is not weak. Ignis, the small but fierce familiar, squares off against the fluffy Snolia, his body tensed in a predatory crouch. With a sudden sharp flick, his tail lashes through the air, the tip wreathed in a persistent, glowing flame that crackles with magical energy. He narrows his eyes, projecting a sense of simmering feline annoyance that fills the space between them. Unable to contain his irritation any longer, Ignis snaps his mouth open and lets out a sharp, commanding cry. "You!" he shouts, his voice echoing with a mix of demand and frustration. His sharp features are twisted into a mask of pure indignation, clearly trying to provoke a reaction from the stoic creature facing him. Yet, Snolia is far from intimidated. Instead, she is completely transfixed by the mesmerizing spectacle behind him. Her gaze is locked onto his wagging tail, marveling at the fact that he's wagging his tail. She thinks to herself that the fire won't go out even if he shakes it, finding the display utterly amazing as she watches the flickering embers dance in the air with wide, innocent eyes. Snolia watches the small, dark-furred spirit with a calm, analytical gaze, her internal monologue drifting away from the typical measures of power. To her, Ignis isn't a figure of strength or weakness, she simply finds him adorable. Ignis bristles with a defiant energy, his small form standing tall despite the presence of the larger, ethereal creature. He shouts with a mixture of bravado and insecurity, declaring loudly that he is not afraid of her. Ignis remains on high alert, his ears flickering like dark flames as he stares down his companion. Snolia, however, is far from intimidated, her mind captivated by the finer details of his appearance. She finds herself fixated on his tiny limbs, marveling especially at those little paws. A spark of curiosity ignites within her as she wonders if his paws are black as well, her thoughts consumed by a gentle, playful desire to see them for herself. Ignis, the obsidian-furred beast with faint leopard markings, lowers his body into a focused, predatory crouch. His eyes narrow with a sharp, competitive glint as he prepares to showcase his skills, mentally urging those around him to watch closely. With a youthful sense of pride, he declares his own excellence, ready to prove his worth. In the quiet observation of the moment, there is a sense of relief that since he is still just a child, the heat radiating from his flame-tipped tail is not nearly as intense as it could be. Suddenly, the tension breaks as Ignis launches himself forward with a powerful pounce, his dark form streaking across the floor like a shadow in flight. Snolia, the tiny and fluffy white fox, stands frozen as the larger spirit hurtles toward her with alarming speed. Her eyes widen in pure terror at the sudden assault, and a sharp, high-pitched cry of eek escapes her as she cowers beneath the impending impact of the playful but overwhelming charge. A wave of sudden, visceral panic breaks the stillness of the room, sending a jolt of electricity through the air as the situation spirals out of control. Hilg, his face contorted with desperation and sweat beading on his brow, lunges into the fray with a roar that rattles the chamber, bellowing Kugel as his hand snatches toward the small, dark creature. Beside him, Lady Seraphina's regal composure shatters instantly, her eyes widen in a mirrored terror, her voice piercing the cacophony as she screams Malfiria for her beloved companion. The white familiar lets out a startled, melodic cown chirp as it is gathered up in the frenzy. In an instant, the chaos subsides into a tense, heavy silence as the two masters retreat, each cradling their familiars protectively against their chests. Hilg breathes heavily, his jaw set in a hard, defensive line while his gaze darts toward the source of the commotion. Lady Seraphina pulls her fox-like spirit into the warmth of her fur collar, her expression hardening with an icy resolve that wards off any further approach. In the wake of the outburst, Baron Valtier and young Alara remain rooted to the spot in the background, their expressions a mix of sheer disbelief and growing concern as they struggle to process the sudden, violent display of protective instinct. Alara's voice rings out with sharp authority as she lashes out at the young man before her, her eyes narrowed in frustration and her mouth open in a heated shout. She declares firmly that a spirit does not try to show off their power, her indignation clear as she stands with Snolia perched on her shoulder. Not letting him off the hook, she continues her verbal assault, questioning who he thinks he is to speak such words. With a sneer, she calls him out as nothing more than a fighter and a sore loser. Across from her, Ignis roars back in a fit of rage, his pride wounded as he shouts at the foolish boy who has provoked this confrontation. He grips his spirit companion tightly, the air thick with the residue of their clash. The fire of the moment cools into a tense, heavy silence as the scene shifts. Ignis stands tall, his expression hardening into one of cold indifference as he looks away from his accuser. His voice drops to a low, haughty tone as he announces that he will not lay a hand on the weak, dismissing his opponents as beneath his notice. His small spirit mirrors his stoicism, its large eyes staring blankly ahead as it rests in his arms. Alara, observing his arrogance with a sharp, knowing gaze, doesn't back down. She offers a biting final remark, telling him with a subtle smirk that his son must look a lot like him, a comment dripping with irony that hangs in the air between them. Ignis grips the squirming bundle of chaos that is Kugel, his expression a mask of parental exhaustion and firm resolve. The small, dark-furred creature wiggles frantically in his arms, driven by an insatiable curiosity that Ignis knows all too well will lead to trouble. "Father, put me down?" Kugel pleads, his eyes fixed on some distant scent that has captured his primal attention. "I smelled something good. I want to smell it again." The refusal is instant and absolute as Ignis bellows a sharp no, his grip tightening to prevent the tiny beast from launching itself into whatever mischief it has sensed. Across from them, Lady Seraphina observes the chaotic scene with a look of profound skepticism, her eyes narrowing as she clutches the pristine, white Malfiria protectively to her chest. She makes her boundaries known with a cold, firm declaration that leaves no room for negotiation. "I'll be friends with Kugel when he's a little older and more mentally stable," she remarks, her voice laced with a mother's defensive instinct and a touch of aristocratic disdain for the unruly pup. The confrontation reaches a boiling point as Seraphina's patience finally snaps, her face contorting in a protective rage. She screams, pointing an accusatory finger at the flustered Ignis. Caught between his headstrong ward and the lady's wrath, Ignis tries to find a diplomatic middle ground. He reasons that once the children have matured, he'd be open to another meeting, acknowledging that there simply are no other companions quite like them in the world. With a nervous sweat breaking on his brow and a heavy sigh, he quietly suggests that perhaps the best course of action is to focus on disciplining the kids so they can finally learn to be kind to one another. Lady Seraphina erupts in a surge of maternal defiance, her finger pointed sharply as she shouts that such a thing is impossible, declaring loudly that she is not afraid of him. Across from her, Ignis maintains a relaxed, mischievous demeanor, a wide and playful grin on his face as he cradles the small red creature Kugel. He teases her with a glimmer of future possibilities, suggesting that soon enough, it could be her turn to deal with the inevitable. Beneath the tension, a different kind of curiosity takes hold as Snolia, the white creature in Elara's arms, leans forward with an obsessive need to sniff the newcomer. Elara watches with a sigh of resignation, thinking to herself that this breach of personal space is only permitted because Kugel is so undeniably cute. Ignis, however, feels a bead of nervous sweat form as he looks down, his mind racing with the awkwardness of their potential future. He wonders if it is far too early to be discussing them as lovers or a couple, a heavy sense of relief washing over him that Lady Seraphina so vehemently disagrees. The thought that he nearly had a violent fiancée at the age of 1 is a bullet he is more than happy to dodge. Meanwhile, Elara has reached her limit, her face contorted into a comical mask of seething rage as she fumes silently, her small frame vibrating with indignation while Snolia remains blissfully indifferent in her arms. Snolia nestles deep into the warmth of her companion, her tiny form almost lost in the soft texture of the garment. Her eyes are wide and curious as she admits to a quiet, instinctive urge, thinking to herself that she simply wants to smell it. A heavy, thoughtful silence follows as she lingers in the moment, her small face a picture of innocent contemplation. As she rests, a series of profound realizations wash over her like shimmering light. She ponders the laws of her kind, realizing that if it truly takes 2 spirits to conceive a child, then she must possess a father as well. It is a complicated truth, one she decides to leave out of the question for now, though the idea of a bond like a married couple continues to sparkle in her mind. The weight of these new thoughts suddenly hits Snolia with full force, her expression shifting to one of sheer, wide-eyed alarm. She stares blankly ahead, her small nose twitching as the gravity of her existence and the potential for a family she never knew begins to settle in her heart. The air is suddenly pierced by Hilg's frantic shouting, his face turning a shade of bright, embarrassed red that matches the intensity of his outburst. He stares in disbelief, his mouth agape as he demands to know if the child belongs to the water spirit, his voice rising in a desperate pitch as he asks if she truly refused to make a baby with him. In a moment of quiet grace, Malfiria holds the small spirit close, her eyes cast downward in a serene reflection of her past. She speaks softly, explaining that before her encounter with the one-eyed knight, her entire world was a narrow, frozen landscape consisting of nothing but her mother and the snow. The very concept of a future or a family is a foreign land she confesses she has never even thought about until this very moment. The cold air of the estate grounds hangs heavy as snow drifts lazily past the stone walls of the manor. A voice echoes in the silence of the mind, grappling with a revelation that shakes the very foundation of identity. Her father was not a mere mortal, but a water spirit. The weight of this truth descends like a sudden pressure, leaving a plush rabbit toy lying limp and forgotten, a silent witness to the gravity of the secret. Below, Hilg stares wide-eyed into the void, sweat trickling down his fur as his breath hitches in pure, unadulterated shock. Paralyzed by the magnitude of what he has just learned, he can only manage a whispered, trembling exclamation, "My God!" With a radiant smile that lights up her face, Tina presents a small, handmade doll to her fluffy companion. Her eyes sparkle with a mix of pride and nervousness as she explains that she was so happy Malfiria came to the fort to play that she felt compelled to make a gift. She holds the stitched creation forward, eagerly asking what the little creature thinks of it. Malfiria stares at the lopsided toy, its button eyes and stitched on smile staring back, and quietly questions if this is meant to be a rabbit. In the quiet tension of the moment, Tina watches for a reaction, her gaze searching for approval as she holds her breath. Malfiria looks up with a soft expression and offers a heartfelt thank you to Tina for the unexpected kindness. The fluffy creature leans down, pressing her cheek against the doll with a gentle nuzzle that shows her appreciation. A soft breath of amazement escapes her as she whispers a quiet "oh wow," fully embracing the warmth of the handmade gesture and the bond they share. In a burst of pure, unadulterated joy, Snolia pounces on her new prize, her small teeth sinking deep into the plush fabric. She marvels at the novelty of the sensation, her mind racing with the realization of how fun the activity is. Relishing the unique and satisfying feeling of biting into soft, yielding cotton, she tosses the toy around with vigorous energy, her small frame perfectly matched to the size of the stuffed companion, allowing her to play with ease. As she continues her enthusiastic assault, she reflects on her past, noting with a touch of innocence that she has never actually played with a stuffed animal before. Hearing this, Elara watches from the side, her posture relaxed but her expression filled with a mix of amusement and gentle pity. She softly interjects, informing the little creature that the toy was actually intended for snuggling rather than a fierce hunt. This revelation catches Snolia completely off guard, causing her to freeze mid-action. With the toy still clamped firmly in her jaws, she looks up with wide, startled eyes, her voice echoing her disbelief as she exclaims, "Really?" A quiet, intimate moment begins as the small, fluffy creature Malfiria looks up with wide, innocent eyes, a plush toy held firmly in its mouth. A soft, lingering thought calls out to Tina, acknowledging the bond between them. Tina responds with a radiant, heartwarming smile that crinkles her eyes with pure affection. She looks at her companion with a gaze full of warmth, remarking that as long as Chan is enjoying herself, she is perfectly content. In a sudden burst of playful energy, Malfiria whirls around, toys flying through the air in a flurry of motion lines and sparkles. Tina watches the chaotic display of joy with a peaceful expression, her heart full as she offers a sincere word of thanks for the simple happiness they share. The scene transitions to the crisp, open air of a winter wilderness, where Malfiria trots confidently through a landscape dusted with snow. Surrounded by dancing musical notes, the creature marvels at the freedom of its own movement, thinking about how wonderful it feels to be so mobile and unburdened. As the jagged, snow-capped mountains loom in the distance, a sense of routine begins to settle in. Malfiria reflects on the journey, realizing that the constant travel between the safety of the fort and the comfort of home is finally becoming second nature. In the quiet expanse of the snowy wilderness, Snolia pauses as a flicker of light catches the eye. A small, dancing flame manifests in the frigid air, prompting a curious murmur of wonder. The peaceful atmosphere shifts instantly as the tiny spark erupts into a surge of energy. Snolia's eyes widen in disbelief, calling out Kugel's name as the dark, feline form materializes from the heat. Kugel lands with a predatory grace, his fur as dark as soot and his eyes sharp with intent, a trail of fire flickering behind him like a living cape. Recovering from the initial shock, Snolia watches the newcomer with genuine admiration, admitting that the display is truly impressive. With curiosity piqued, Snolia asks if the fire-wrought traveler has journeyed all the way from the south. Kugel remains stoic, a heavy silence hanging between them as the tip of his tail continues to burn with a steady, defiant flame. Against the biting chill of the high peaks, Ignis puffs out his chest with a fiery defiance, his eyes wide with a mix of excitement and stubborn pride as he declares that he doesn't mind the snow in the slightest. Snolia, a creature of soft white fur that blends seamlessly with the frost, tilts her head with genuine curiosity and asks if he isn't cold. She reminds him with a quiet observation that they are, after all, currently traversing a snowy mountain. Ignis doesn't miss a beat, shouting back with defensive energy that it isn't cold at all, his inner flame clearly shielding him from the elements. The verbal sparring quickly turns into physical play as the two companions collapse into a chaotic, rolling heap on the frozen ground. They tumble across the powder in a flurry of gray and white limbs, their joyful yelps echoing through the thin mountain air as Ignis's flaming tail leaves a faint trail of heat behind them. After the spirited scramble, Snolia ends up sprawled flat against the chilling surface, her wide eyes staring up blankly as she catches her breath, the serene silence of the snowy landscape returning as they rest in the white expanse. The heavy silence of the room is punctuated only by the sight of a plush bunny lying decapitated on the floor, its white cotton stuffing spilling out like a silent tragedy. A sense of impending doom hangs over the scene as Hilg stares down at the wreckage, his face drained of color and glistening with a cold sweat. He mutters a dire realization to himself, fearing that he is truly done for after his unintentional display of force. The weight of his guilt is palpable as he admits that he simply played too rough, never intending to break the precious object with his overwhelming strength. Nearby, Snolia looks on with wide, anxious eyes, letting out a sharp breath of disbelief at the knight's clumsy power. From the periphery, Ilara watches the unfolding disaster, her silent presence adding to the crushing pressure of the moment as Hill grapples with the consequences of his actions. Tina radiates warmth as she closes her eyes and beams a comforting smile toward her small companion, dismissing any worry with a cheerful exclamation. She reassures the little creature that everything is perfectly fine, telling it that she had a wonderful time playing together. However, the atmosphere carries a hint of regret as the scene shifts to Tina holding the broken remains of a delicate craft. The small, fluffy creature looks up at her with wide, sorrowful eyes, softly apologizing and whispering her name as it realizes the toy is ruined. Undeterred by the loss, Tina turns back to the creature with a bright and determined look in her eyes, promising that she will simply make a brand new one. She adds with a playful wink that she will make sure the next version is much sturdier to survive their antics. Her profile shines with pure kindness as she looks down at the little white fox, her smile never wavering. Watching the exchange from the side, Kugel observes with a small, knowing smirk, his scared face softening as he remarks that things have turned out well for the little one. The creature, moved by Tina's boundless generosity, can only murmur her name again in a voice filled with quiet gratitude. Hilg leans in with a focused gaze, asking Snolia if she has heard of the water spirit. The small, fluffy creature looks up with an air of realization, acknowledging that she does indeed know of it. Hilg nods solemnly, confirming the weight of the topic they have broached. Snolia tilts her head, her curiosity piqued as she asks if the distance to find the spirit is great. Hilg rests his chin in his hand, a contemplative shadow crossing his face as he considers the legends. He notes that while he has heard the spirit dwells in the southern territories, the king's involvement makes any journey to find him a delicate and uncertain matter. Seeing a spark of interest in Snowlia, Hilg asks if she truly desires to seek out the water spirit. He confesses that while he lacks an exact location, he is certain the spirit resides somewhere nearby. With a supportive look, he tells her that if she truly wishes to embark on this journey, he will respect her choice and allow her to go. A heavy sense of curiosity hangs in the air as Baron Valtier narrows his gaze, his brow furrowing in silent confusion as he tries to process the unfolding mystery. Beside him, the small, snowy creature known as Snowly absorbs the weight of the situation, a soft realization dawning upon him as he mutters that he finally understands. The moment is thick with unspoken questions as the knight stares at the fluff ball, wondering what revelation has just occurred. Under the vast starlit expanse of the mountain peaks, Snowlia stands resolute, a single bead of sweat glistening on his forehead as he weighs the gravity of his next step. Looking toward the horizon where his kin reside, a surge of determination washes over him despite his small stature. No longer content with half-answers or uncertainty, he resolves with a firm declaration that he will have to ask Mother directly, ready to confront the source of his lineage's secrets once and for all. In the cold, crystalline silence of their sanctuary, a single sharp eye narrows, weighing the gravity of a long-buried secret. The majestic Snowly gazes forward with a stoic and unwavering expression, her presence radiating a quiet authority. Beside her, the small and inquisitive Hilg looks up, his voice barely a whisper as he addresses her simply as Mother. The air grows heavy with expectation as Hilg gathers his courage to ask the question that has burned in his mind. What do you know about my father? Snowly's gaze remains fixed, her tone level yet carries the weight of a harsh reality as she reminds him that he has only ever known one parent and possesses no father. A small, uncertain bit escapes Hilg, his ears drooping as he tries to find the words to challenge her definitive stance. Snowlia closes her eyes for a moment, the atmosphere thickening as she reflects on the cryptic mentions of water spoken of by the fire spirit. A long silence follows, stretching the tension until it finally snaps with her soft, wary admission. You're right, she concedes, finally acknowledging the truth she had sought to shield him from. The air is thick with the scent of fresh frost and the hushed silence of a sacred den. Small and fluffy, Snowly looks up at her mother with wide, inquisitive eyes, her voice a mix of confusion and wonder as she asks if being a snow spirit means she is also half water spirit. Her mother, a majestic figure of pure white fur, rests her head against the cold ground, her expression calm and unyielding as she delivers a simple, firm denial. Resting her eyes, the mother spirit, Lady Borealis, drifts into a memory of duty and destiny. She speaks softly, her voice carrying the weight of a long, standing tradition as she explains that it was simply her turn to fulfill the biological mandate of her kind. To her, this was not just a birth, but a pivotal moment in the lineage of spirits, dictated by a cycle that moves with the inevitability of the seasons. Snowly stares blankly into the distance, her tiny mouth falling open as the gravity of her existence begins to settle. Lady Borealis continues, revealing that Snowly is the daughter of her heir, a pure-blooded spirit of snow, and that among their kind there is no room for hybridity, a child is born as one essence or the other. She explains that because Snowly was born female, the divine right to raise her was granted to her mother. A chilling realization washes over the cub, her thoughts turning dark as she considers a reality where she was born a boy, a reality where she would have been separated from the mother she loves before ever knowing her warmth. The air is thick with a gentle, glowing mist as the great white wolf, Snowlia, gazes downward with a look of quiet contemplation. Her majestic form dominates the space, a being of ancient grace. A small, round spirit named Lumi looks up with an expression of pure innocence, breaking the silence with a question that has clearly been weighing on its mind. What is father like? Snowlia's eyes narrow slightly as if seeing a face from a long-forgotten dream. A faint, knowing smile seems to touch her spirit as she answers, her voice a soothing murmur. Well, whatever you call him. He's a slow, easygoing guy, she admits. She continues, her thoughts drifting to the balance they shared, noting that since he is of water, he is a natural and perfect match for her own snowy essence. Lumi blinks, its tiny mouth set in a line of mild confusion. While Snowlia speaks with such reverence, the description feels underwhelming to the little spirit. Lumi's internal monologue reveals its skepticism, thinking that he sounds a bit plain for a guy who's supposed to be a father, having expected someone of more thunderous power or imposing stature. As Snowly looks out toward the horizon, her fur shimmering under the soft light, Lumi continues to ponder the complexities of their relationship. It had always viewed them through the lens of a human married couple, but it now realizes that spirits might operate on an entirely different plane of existence. The curiosity becomes too much to bear, and Lumi looks back at Snowly with a spark of resolve in its eyes. I want to meet him, it announces, the simple declaration marking the beginning of a new desire to see the truth for itself. Snowlia, the majestic white fox, gazes down at her small companion with a soft, knowing expression. She offers a gentle promise, telling the little one that if she is truly that curious, she would be happy to let her meet him at least once. The small white creature, Lumi, reacts with explosive excitement, her eyes wide as she asks if it's really true. Anxious that her curiosity might be misconstrued as a desire for independence, Lumi quickly adds a heartfelt clarification. With a look of earnest devotion, she explains that it isn't that she wants to leave her mother's side, she is simply eager to see what he is truly like. As the quiet of the night begins to take hold, Snowlia curls her massive, snowy body around Lumi, providing a warm and secure sanctuary. Her eyes drift shut in the peaceful atmosphere as she murmurs that it is time for sleep and they will continue their conversation tomorrow. Lumi snuggles deep into the soft fur, her initial burst of energy fading into a comfortable lethargy. In the final moments before sleep claims her, a drowsy smile plays on Lumi's face. Her eyes are half closed, but her mind is still sharp with the weight of the promise. She whispers to herself that she will remember everything tomorrow, a final thought echoing in her heart. She will never forget the words her mother spoke. In the heart of a frozen wilderness, the great white wolf Snowlia lies nestled in the biting cold, her massive form acting as a protective shield for the tiny, sleeping Lumi. There is a profound stillness in her gaze, a mixture of ancient sorrow and a newfound, unwavering determination. As she stares into the distance, a solemn vow takes root in her heart, manifesting in whispered fragments of thought. She promises with a quiet intensity that she won't forget, letting the words hang in the air like a sacred oath that the winter winds cannot sweep away. The scene shifts to the sprawling expanse of the snowy mountains, where the horizon meets a pale, shimmering sky. Rows of dark, evergreen trees pierce through the thick blankets of white, standing as silent witnesses to the quiet drama unfolding in the peaks. The vast, empty landscape emphasizes the solitude of her journey, yet the sun's distant glow hints at a persistence that remains unbroken. Even in this desolate beauty, the memory she clings to serves as a guiding light, burning brightly against the cold, indifferent world. The crisp winter air hangs heavy over the snow-covered landscape as Lady Borealis looks down at her small companion with a maternal warmth. She grants a rare freedom, instructing that while a visit to the fort is permitted, a prompt return before the shadows of nightfall stretch across the tundra is non-negotiable. Snowly gazes up with bright, eager eyes, chirping a spirited confirmation that the message is understood. Adjusting her thick fur mantle, Lady Borealis prepares to depart, her expression one of calm authority. She offers a final parting word, noting that she is off to make her rounds across their icy domain. The soft rustle of her heavy robes against the snow marks the beginning of her journey, leaving the little fox-like creature to its own devices in the vast, glittering wilderness. As Lady Borealis fades into the distance, Snowly watches the elegant figure become a mere silhouette against the backdrop of towering pines and rolling snowdrifts. The silence of the mountain settles in, broken only by the whistling wind as the small creature stands momentarily still, weighing the weight of the newfound independence granted for the day. A long moment of contemplation passes as Snowlia stares into the white horizon. With a flick of a fluffy tail and a determined look, the decision is finally made. Breaking the silence with a soft whisper to the wind, Snowlia resolves to head toward the fort, stepping forward into the deep snow to begin a solitary trek across the frozen expanse.